Tsukina says she doesn't want to go to another world and thanks him for the offer. God explains that he encouraged others to happily agree and asks why not. She says she's already over 30, so she'd prefer not to engage in something like that. Then there's a loud crash. The sphere that is now before you was called God. It is also said that even so, it is necessary for you to go to another world as the Savior. A journey to another world. The girl reveals her name is Tsukina Mizumori. She's almost 33 years old, and her hobbies are reading and cooking. She explains that, as usual, she dozed off while reading, but she's seen it in manga and books. But is it normal for someone like her to be involved in rescue work? She says she doesn't usually read this genre, and finds it strange that she's dreaming about something like this. Then explains that it's not a dream, as she's already sent many people, and they've all gone happily. After that, she reasons that since they're all already there, it'll be fine if she doesn't go. Tsukina says that the others who were happy to go were younger. She expresses confusion. Then Tsukina reveals that they were all teenagers. She says that being the main character in a world of sword and magic, making new acquaintances and traveling sounds exciting, but there are nuances. Tsukina says that at her age, you think more about the consequences, whereas in your youth, you were eager to set out and tried not to miss anything. She asks what exactly the man meant when he said she had to save the world, and clarifies that in this world, you have to fight faithfully. She explains that they are all saviors, and wants the girl to use great magic to bring prosperity to the world. She explains that when people from this world travel to another, they gain incredible magical power, and with this great magic they are able to unite countries and only saviors can create. Tsukina says she definitely can't do it. She reports that she provides for herself and is quite content with her surroundings, and explains that there are many downsides to throwing away her knowledge of the world and culture with which she has lived her entire life, simply to escape to another world. The girl says she's sorry, but when you reach her age, you start living for yourself. It's not that she's thrilled with her job, but it provides stability. Tsukina asks if she really needs to go there. The voice tells her that it's not up for discussion and she must go. Tsukina says that fighting isn't necessary. The voice explains that if she just lives there peacefully, that's fine too, as long as there's a savior there. She says that at this rate she won't be able to return to her world, and at this time, a promise is made to fulfill any of her wishes in return. It speaks of powerful weapons, superhuman physical abilities, and a new appearance, and also that before summoning people to that world, their wishes are granted. The voice asks if the girl has a wish, like a dream she'd like to fulfill, or something similar. Tsukina ponders, Meika? Tsukina says it's okay to just live there, and the voice confirms that everything is fine. She explains that she can ask for as many wishes as she wants, and the voice adds, yes, that before everyone thought you could only ask for one. She says it's better to clarify such a detail. Sphere asks why. Tsukina says she first wants to know the language and basics of this world. The voice says it will ensure the interlocutor is comfortable navigating it. She also asks if the people of that world know of the existence of the Savior. The sphere announces that when you get there, the sign of the Savior will appear on your body, and it says that many countries want the Savior, so they will probably search for this sign. Tsukina asks if it's possible to place the item somewhere it won't be visible, like at the back of her head, under her hair. The voice says that's fine, but when using a certain type of great magic, specifically, it will glow. Tsukina replies that she'll try not to use it near others. She says that, according to the orb, this world is full of demons and magical creatures, and asks if there is a country with special knights who protect against this. The voice informs that such a country does indeed exist. Tsukina explains that she needs a place within the country, for example, a discreet cafe near the city, close to the forest, where she can live. Sphere says she understands and asks her to imagine the ideal cafe she plans to create. Tsukina says that would also be nice. She says she can make the pendant return to her if she loses it, and thanks him for it. The girl thinks he'll create whatever she wants, but is that enough? The voice says her requests are so specific that it's even tiring. She says she can use magic? Well, besides the great magic of the Savior? The voice says it's the first time anyone's asked this question, and explains that she has magical powers, but she doesn't know how to use them. Then it says she has no command and can't even start a fire with magic, and to put it in terms of the games from her world, Spear explains that some use magic textbooks or learn from other wizards, and Tsukina asks how to learn. She then asks to make sure she knows the most powerful defensive magic. Sphere says she'll intuitively know what to do. Sphere says he's relying on her. Tsukina says she asked for everything she could. Tsukina announces that her new life is now beginning. She explains that everything is just as she imagined. She explains that the ground floor is where the cafe and kitchen area is located. Tsukina opens the storage room and says it looks great, then asks about a separate room. Tsukina says, wow, looking at the house. She asks if this road leads to the city. According to the information God gave her, this country is called Osella, and that this snowy kingdom is fortified with high walls. She explains that it is quite peaceful here thanks to experienced knights who protect the population from monsters. Tsukina says she'll think about it later. Tsukina reveals she owns a cafe and wonders where to start. She says that due to the location, there will obviously not be many visitors, and she does not want to be constantly overworked. Tsukina reports that a screen with a search bar appeared in her head. She says that in any case, it needs some work. She says that at first there's such a huge selection that she can't decide. Then she explains that further down there will be reading areas with partitions, like in a manga cafe. She talks about the huge selection. Tsukina says she thinks she needs a room too. Then there's a knock on the door. The girl says she's already hungry. She explains that there's a counter here, like in a cafe, and there are antique accessories. Tsukina says she wonders if there is magic that prevents books from getting dirty, and that she would use it. She reports that the magic textbook looks exactly like this and explains that it is a book about magic that will announce the arrival of visitors. Tsukina reports that horses are common here for transportation, so a stable is needed. The fireplace has a magical barrier that prevents the fire from spreading throughout the room. She reports that the stable is equipped with a refillable water trough and a pasture with automatic cleaning and anti-theft magic. Tsukina explains that she puts up a barrier to keep the heat inside and sneezes. She explains that it is a barrier that retains heat. Tsukina announces that she has arrived. Then she opens the door. She says everything is ready. Tsukina reports that the crackling fire in the fireplace creates a cozy atmosphere. She explains that she made tea and sandwiches to enjoy reading. She says that there are books in the library that can help. Tsukina explains that you need to find the right book and take it from the shelf. Tsukina says she was so excited she didn't even realize there probably wouldn't be any guests for a while. She then explains that at least she has time to read and study magic. She looks at the man in the cloak entering. The man takes off his cloak and tells her that she is a person from this world with delicate features and white skin, similar to a model. Tsukina was tired of the man. The man was hiding something, Tsukina said. Ah! Tsukina asks if it's a real sword. He says yes, then remains silent and looks at her. Tsukina says she's clutching the book. She asks if it's true that she's in another world. She says she welcomes you to her book cafe. The man says he can't tell what it was. Tsukina looks charmingly. She says she's decided to read all the books she's been given this year. The man says it's a good idea and wishes her luck. The voice says that she arrived safely. The voice says he's been having bad luck lately, running into strange people. Not long ago, a girl he summoned had some troubles. The voice says that this girl is also in this kingdom and says that everything will probably be fine. A girl says good afternoon and welcomes you to her book cafe. Tsukina says she's glad he came. The man says he's glad to see her too. The man says there's nothing wrong with leaving his horse in the clearing outside. The woman explains there's a barrier there to prevent theft, so the horse is safe. She explains that the barrier is high-level magic. The boy asks if this is really a book cafe. Tsukina explains that all the books are protected from magical contamination, so one can safely read them while eating and drinking. She then informs him that he can read any of these books at his leisure. The man looks at the number of books and is surprised. He says the book hasn't been published yet, and the girl replies that she wanted to read it and looked everywhere. Tsukina says that, fortunately, she managed to get a copy and asks if they want to read it, to which the guy replies that of course they do. The man reads the recipe for the main course and says there are so many types of black tea that he doesn't know which one to choose. The girl says you can sit wherever you like since there are no other guests. The man asks for a sandwich and any suitable tea. The girl replies that it's fine. The man claps his hands, the girl sighs and looks at the man. Tsukina says she needs fresh ingredients first. Then she starts cutting the tomatoes. The girl starts cooking. Tsukina explains that you need to flip the pancakes. She explains that the batter is poured onto the pan. She cuts a sandwich, then pours tea into a cup and announces that this is the finishing touch, after which she talks about the magic of restoration. Tsukina reports that everything is ready. A man is reading a book. She says she's bringing something, and the man shudders. She places a tray with a cup on the table, and the man says it smells delicious. Tsukina informs him that the teapot is enchanted so that it never runs out, and says that he can drink as much tea as he wants. The man thanks her. She says that you can stay until closing if you want, but if you have plans, it's worth using this alarm. Tsukina explains that the bell will ring in her head at a set time, and also says that she will be reading at the counter and that if she needs anything, she can ring the bell. The man thanks her and notes that this is an even higher level magic. The man continues reading contentedly, and the girl leaves. The guy says that there is nothing in this world that could compare to this drink, and explains that tea is not just a drink, but an entire culture that unites people. The man is eating a sandwich and drinking tea. The guy takes a bite of the sandwich and says it's soft. He then explains that it looks like a regular sandwich, but the fresh ingredients make it taste amazing, and asks if bread has always been this soft in this country. He says he has already forgotten how delicious food can be, and yet he eats it. He asks if she was really that skilled. The man says, the woman says, this cafe serves the best tea in town. Tsukina says that this cafe has always had these prices, and the man remains silent and says that's just how it is. The man is surprised that it's so cheap and asks if it's a mistake. The man explains that he's been trying to find the book and has been wanting to read it for a long time. He tells her he's still reading the book and plans to return tomorrow, asking if he can put it aside for her. Tsukina explains that he runs the cafe in his spare time and doesn't advertise it in any way. The man sighs and smiles. Tsukina reports that at the moment he is her first and only guest. The guy asks if he is really the first. Tsukina looks at the guy. The guy says the cafe is in a rather secluded place and hands over a book. She says he'll put the book behind the counter and asks her to write her name on the bookmark. She says goodbye, and the guy says he'll wait and says that since that's all, they'll see each other tomorrow. The boy rides off on a horse. Tsukina reads the name on Il-san's bookmark. She's pleased that her first guest seems like a good person. She says she initially thought he'd be difficult to talk to, but he's cute. She then explains that he ends up being mature and calm, and they seem to have similar tastes in books. Tsukina reports that he looks more rested than when he arrived and explains that perhaps he, like her, relieves stress by reading. The guy says this is a nice cafe. The guy says it's cozy and serves delicious tea and food, as well as a large selection of books, but the owner uses high-level magic. The man says it would be great to be a savior from a castle like that, but something hits the guy. A guy is asked why there's water in his soup. He's been told he hates it. He replies that he didn't know that. The woman says he still has the audacity to make excuses. The woman explains that she is his savior and is more important than him, so she can do whatever she pleases, and no one in this country can compete with her. The man looks tense, and several servants stand nearby with their heads bowed. This year, winter started early, and there was a lot of snow, which also explains why winter in this city is usually cold and snowy. A guy walks down a long corridor with arched windows and hanging lamps. He's greeted and told, "Welcome back, Il." Björk says the man looked much better. The man asks if something happened while he was gone. Björk explains that the man had initially been able to relax while riding his horse. The man confirms this. Björk reports that the rescuer forbade the horses from grazing simply because she got scared and fell. She explains that in any case, this is simply ridiculous. The guy says they can only ride them after work. He explains that for such a bookworm it's really hard. The guy asks what about his reading hour, which he looks forward to every time. The guy says that it would be nice if the prince showed more care for his loved ones, like before. The king, queen, his brother and sister did not try to reason with him, and it had no effect, and also reports that just think how much. The man says he's hopelessly in love with the savior. On the tower, the man and the girl laugh. The guy says that he can't let the girl die and says that he will protect her until the end. The guy says he can't believe the girl came to him, and the girl says she couldn't help but come. Men are shocked by this couple. The guy asks what if anyone hears, and the man says that she is a savior. The guy explains that everyone thinks so, they just don't want to admit it, and explains that although it's been 6 months since she arrived in his country, she spent all that time fooling around with the prince and hasn't learned a single spell. The guy with slicked back blonde hair says that if the prince weren't head over heels in love with her, they would have kicked her out long ago. The very thought of it makes her blood boil. He says everything is fine, and she understands how he feels. The guy apologizes. The boy says they must find a solution, not only for the sake of the knights, but for the sake of the entire people. The man says he's glad Il is here, and if he had no one to complain to, he'd go crazy. Il also says he's glad. The guy says it looks like the break is over. The man explains this while watching people approaching. The man reports that not only can't they rely on the savior, but they're also forced to increase their patrols because of her. Il says he's leaving this to Captain Soil Dono. The man says enough of this ridiculous formality and asks Bjork if he is really the vice captain. Bjork confirms, saying, "Yes, yes. It would be great if this tension in the air dissipated sooner." Bjork says it's out of their control and it's better to do what they can. Osella was a large country, covered in snow. It was a peaceful land. The royal family was attentive to its people. Thanks to the efforts of skilled knights, monsters caused few problems. First, a girl appeared, a savior. The country was shocked by the sudden appearance of a savior with immense power, and the prince was captivated by her delicate features. The entire country welcomed her with open arms. Everyone believed that the savior would protect the country with her power, but no matter how much time passed, she never once sat down to study a magic textbook. On the contrary, she used her status to get whatever she wanted, from demanding more luxurious furnishings to commanding anyone she wanted. Everyone living in the castle was exhausted, but since the prince blindly favored her, no one could stop her. The woman reports that the prince is listening to her. The girl accuses the head maid of trying to harm her. The man asks the head maid if this is true. The head maid explains that she would never do anything like that. Tsukina explains that she simply asked to see the necklace, and the girl got angry at her. The man says it's unfair. The girl says she only said it was a memento of her mother and that she can't give it to them. The maid tells him she's been serving the prince since he was a child, and he knows she never lies. She asks him if he doesn't believe her. The prince remains silent. Levi says he never imagined Tsukina was capable of such cruelty. On the left, a man with short blonde hair and a woman with a ponytail look worried, while a group of 6 uniformed people stand in a row. The man says that there is nothing in this world that money cannot buy. The boy informs the captain that there's a problem concerning the rescuer. The captain asks if it's happening again. The girl tells the prince that she's scared, so the rescuer shouldn't be there. A man says this is the place. A man says here. A man says that. Tsukina thanks him for the report and allows him to return to his post, and the man agrees. Tsukina sighs. The man says that the head maid should disappear and another maid should exchange her pendant for a fake one, and mentions the name Bjork. The sound of a door opening can be heard in the room. The girl announces that the shrimp and mayonnaise salad is ready. The girl says the stupid maid ruined her life because of some trinket. A hand throws a chain which jingles as it falls. The girl says she can't understand why she can't become the person she wants to be. She explains that despite all her efforts, she can't change herself. The girl sighs, then says she's so cute. The girl says that she doesn't even need to learn magic, and that as long as she has the looks and status in this world, life is incredibly easy. The girl says that being the savior is the best. Tsukina sits in a chair with a book in her hands. Cookies and a cup of drink are on the table nearby. She says she wonders if he'll come again, then she reads a book and enjoys a treat. The door creaks and the doorbell rings. Tsukina announces that she is glad to see guests and welcomes them. She says that it is they. She says she'll bring a book now and invites him to sit wherever he likes. The man says he's back to read the book they put aside for him. She explains that he's back, as he promised yesterday. The man asks for his order to be brought to him. He'll have it today and confirms with the word, of course. Tsukina says he ordered a full meal and asks if he'll be staying longer. She says the food is delicious and eats it with a spoon, making nam-nam sounds. She looks at the girl with the books, who is smiling. The man says he's been coming almost every day since then. The girl says he stayed for varying lengths of time, but he always seemed to want to stay longer. The man says the book is very interesting, and the girl explains that she'll definitely read it. The man asks if the author has any other works. Tsukina says it's good that he comes all the time. The man on the horse is silent. The man sighs. She says that the book the man was talking about is really very interesting. The man says that they really do have similar tastes. Tsukina asks if it's right that he's the captain of the knights, and inquires if he has a lot of work to do. The man replies that it's not quite that. The man thanks Tsukina for always enchanting food with restoration magic, noting that it's amazing even for high-level magic. She explains that she just thought it would be nice if the man relaxed a little. The man says he's glad he found this place. The man explains that they have actually lost the ability to take their horses out to pasture. The man explains that he stumbled upon this place while riding his horse. Tsukina says that worry about his horse might be one of the reasons he's been so tired lately. The man on the horse wonders if there's anything he can do to help. The text says it's the market near the castle. She says that even though she can get different things for free with the pendant, it doesn't stop her from going shopping and finding new ingredients. The salesman offers the young lady rare fabrics from foreign countries, informing her that today is the last day. Tsukina talks about foreign countries. She asks, they apologize and wonder if they came from another country. The man says that they have come a long way. Tsukina explains that she comes from a country where it's warm almost year-round, and that snow is wonderful, but living in such cold all the time is quite depressing. She warns them to be careful on the way back. The man thanks her. Tsukina remarks that in this country, winter is eternal. She says that the grass is withering faster and faster, and says that it's okay until Eel arrives. Tsukina reports that the grass is growing. She says that no matter how many times she uses magic, it's always so much fun, and that if she can make grass grow, maybe she can grow something else too, just by expanding the heat barrier. Then she says she did a good job, so to speak, and explains what needs to be prepared. The guy says it'll probably be easier to eat if the food is cut up, so he'll just create it with the pendant. A basket of bread falls down. Sukina notices this with surprise. From right to right, in an overhead shot, a man on a horse rides up to a house. She says, "Welcome." The guy on the horse says, "Hi." Sukina says she decided to replenish the horse's feed before the man's arrival and apologizes for scaring him. The man says it's good, he arrived earlier than usual. She says the horse is so big and very cute. The man tries to call the horse. The horse sniffs the basket of food. It reacts excitedly. The man says, "Ah!" She laughs and says the horse likes it. The woman says she has some apples and carrots and asks if she can hand feed them. The man replies that he can. Sukina expresses confusion. She says the horse is so cute. The horse takes a piece of bread from the man's hand. The man says he's holding the bread. Sukina says she'll put the rest in the feeder and offers her something to eat. The man notices she's answered and asks if he understands her. She says she feels better and thanks him for letting her take care of the horse. The man asks Sukina if she's afraid of horses. She explains that the horse is a little bigger than the ones she's seen before, but she's not afraid because they're so peaceful. Tsukina says she scared her and she fell, and also says that all the horses need to be put down. The man with long hair explains that even the castle maids aren't afraid of them. She speaks to a man who is silent. The man says he understands and that it seems he was worried for nothing. Tsukina says that, by the way, a new book has arrived that he wanted to read. Tsukina suggests they read it there, and the man agrees and asks him to wait. The guy expresses bewilderment. She says that they are leaving. The image contains no text or speech from the characters, only an image of a tree with flowering branches, a chair with a cushion, and a table with a candlestick. Sakina explains that the outdoor terrace has a time limit, and since it always snows in this country, she doesn't think he sees it often. Sakina explains that reading outside is a nice change of scenery. The man says it's beautiful. Sakina explains that these trees are from another country. The guy says the girl is an amazing person. The guy smiles. Tsukina says she can't describe what she's feeling, but she wants to be close to someone. She explains that this feeling isn't like love, but it's important to her. She says she'll go get a book and a menu anyway, and advises her interlocutor to get comfortable. The man with dark hair and glasses reacts with a questioning expression. Tsukina closed the door and said that such a handsome man is dangerous for her heart. The man tells you that there's only one inn in this town, and it's at the end of the street. He explains that it's called the White Horse and that you can stay there overnight. He explains that the inn is famous for its friendliness and comfort. The man with the lantern says, "Welcome back." The man with long dark hair replies, "Yeah." The guy stares. The dark-haired man explains that lately, when he wasn't away, he always looked better upon his return and asks, "What's wrong?" The guy replies, "No," calling the man a freak. The man says, "It's weird." The guy says he's holding the horse's reins. Sakina notices an ad that's been playing in her head for 9 months. A man on horseback rides up to the house. She says that the salad has mayonnaise. A man with long blonde hair says it's great to be able to relax and wander the stalls, while a man with long dark hair stands nearby. A man with short blonde hair explains that it's especially nice to have the chance to relax and wander the stalls. The guy says that since the prince and the savior are currently busy with each other, there's no need to wait for them. The man remains silent. Tsukina says they should thank the king for his generosity. The man says he'll go check out the weapons shop. The guy says it's unexpected. Usually the girl goes straight to the old bookstore. She says, "No, not this time." The guy says he'll go there and explore the area. The boy muses that he should give Tsukina something as a token of his gratitude. Tsukina explains that she constantly enchants his food with high-level magic for free, so there's nothing strange about it. In the upper panels, the king gives the queen a necklace, while a man and woman stand nearby. She looks at the jewelry display case. She says she doesn't understand why. The man says he hits, then remains silent, and then turns around. A man explains that a salad with mayonnaise and onions is delicious. Tsukina says that a salad with mayonnaise and onions is delicious. The guy says she doesn't seem to like anything overly flashy and shouldn't give him anything that will interfere with her work, perhaps a necklace or earrings. Then the guy notices and says this is appropriate. A guy asks her to wrap his purchase for him, and the girl agrees and thanks him. The girl with the headband is surprised and asks if the guy really wants to buy it. The guy confirms that he does and asks if there are any problems. The man apologizes, and the girl says she'll return the item right away. The man thanks her for that. The man says the gift is gratitude for his help. The guy says he doesn't mind if the girl is next to him. The woman says he just bought a decorative hair tie, and the man confirms that Soy, of all people, did it. The man remains silent, and the man dismisses it as chatter. Tsukina says he's early today. Tsukina greets him and wishes him a warm welcome. The man says he has the day off. She says that it is clear and starts to speak, but does not finish the sentence. A guy with long dark hair says that another guy is with his colleague, is that right? The blonde guy takes off his coat and stands silently next to him. Tsukina says she'll take the man's finger. The man asks why she's doing this. The boy explains that on the king's personal orders, he's come to find out why the man has been unusually cheerful lately. The man responds with surprise. The guy says he thought there was nothing special here, but now it's clear that even someone as serious as him is surprised. Bjork says they'll be introduced. He's a childhood friend of the guy's. She says it's nice to meet him. She's the owner of this cafe. She says she'll show him everything. The guy asks if he'll understood correctly that this is a book cafe. Tsukina explains that all the books are magically protected from contamination, so they can be read while eating and drinking. The man says all these books are magically protected, and that's amazing. The man remains silent. The woman tells Il that she'll put the book he was reading here, to which Il thanks her. The man asks how long she's been running this cafe. Tsukina says it's been about 3 months. The man says it happened not long ago, and the boy explains that the man has loved books since they were kids. The guy says that whenever they practiced fencing and had a free minute, he would start reading, and she explains that in their village, books were a real rarity, so he would reread the same ones over and over again until they were completely worn out. She says that later on. Tsukina asks if they grew up in the same village. The man replies that yes, a village in the middle of nowhere. She tells Il that she'll pour him some tea now. Il thanks her and says he'll drink the tea but will pick up the rest of the book. The man explains that he's been looking better lately, thanks to Tsukina. The boy quietly calls out to the girl. The man says he doesn't taste anything special, and the boy thanks her for the tea and is surprised that Tsukina used restoration magic, yet the taste remained the same. The man remains silent, choosing a book from the shelf. The boy asks Tsukina what type of guy she likes, and Tsukina thanks him. The boy begins. The guy says he can't afford to lose. Tsukina says this place is a cafe where you can relax and eat. The guy explains that they came here to meet someone. Il says that if he didn't come to read, he should go home, and the man agrees. The man sighs, and the woman looks at him questioningly. Tsukina apologizes for bothering him and says everything is fine, he seems very friendly, and asks her to tell him to come again. She then says that before he interrupted, she really wanted to give this to him. The guy hands her a gift. She says it's a gift in gratitude for her concern. The guy explains it. Tsukina says she can open it. She's happy and thanks her for the gift, calling it cute. The man says he'll try on the jewelry now and suggests she do it right now. The man tugs at her hair. She reports that today she did her own hair for the first time, and now she feels a little more grown up. The man says that he can't allow Tsukina to do this and explains that if she doesn't want him to interfere, she'll have to do it herself. The man says he likes the design. Tsukina says it looks like it could be worn every day and she'll take good care of it. The man says he'll be back when Bjork isn't around, and she says that's when. The guy apologizes, and Tsukina says he's not angry. Tsukina says someone chose her especially for him, and that makes her happy. She's reading a book, hears a creaking sound, and the man says that everything seems to be going smoothly. The man says he's a god. Tsukina asks who he is, then repeats the word God with surprise. The man asks, God? She says that it is not God, but just a man. Shar says, yeah. The man explains that he changed his form to resemble the people of this world and has come to warn Tsukina about another savior who has also arrived in this country. Tsukina asks what it means to warn. The man says the girl already knows there's another savior here. She says she's heard rumors in town about a young girl. The man explains that the young woman is rather childish and, in some ways, even more amazing than she is. She asks if she's amazing. Tsukina reports that the girl has disappeared into the forest to live in peace. Tsukina explains that in the meantime, she has claimed to be the savior and spends all her time in the royal castle. Tsukina explains that this savior hates studying and hasn't learned a single spell. The girl. She says it turns out she's just having fun in the castle. The man replies that it's bingo. Tsukina explains that she will be going into a dangerous world, but all she wanted was to be beautiful and adds that people never love what they think. It's reported that, as the only wanted child of a wealthy couple, she grew up extremely spoiled. Furthermore, now that she has perfect looks, the prince fawns over her and she can do whatever she wants in this world. Tsukina laughs and says he doesn't even know what to say, then explains that maybe that's why T-Sil is so tired. The man on the right reports that the situation is getting worse. The man on the left confirms this and says he said that upon arrival from Tsukina's world, people gain amazing magical abilities. Tsukina asks. The woman explains that a person's abilities are usually influenced by their emotions, and those who have never used magic before don't know how to control them. She also says that if the savior's emotions get out of control for some reason, she listens. It's reported that it's quite possible that a magical force will unleash an irreversible catastrophe on the entire country. Tsukina says this with alarm. She says that she can only bring back a person who has been transported here if they are about to die or if they have caused serious damage to this world. She explains that the excess of her magic is already turning into hypnotic magic, which is affecting the prince. She asks. First, the sound of a door closing is heard, after which Tsukina explains that even if her magic goes out of control, it can be contained with defensive magic, and she can return it without harming the country. Tsukina then asks if this is what she's been told to stop. She says that she can't force another person and that if something happens, no matter what he decides, it will be his choice. The man drinks from a cup. Tsukina remains silent and drinks from her mug, then says that if the saviors use magic against each other, she wonders who will win and whether her protective magic will work on her. The woman says she has a question and is thinking about it. She says she has the advantage of having better control over her magic, and by studying spells, her powerful sorcery should have become even stronger. The man explains that he just wanted her to know and advises her to do as she pleases. She reports that it is clear. The guy says that ill. The man looks at the guy. The man smiles. The guy says, "Oh." The guy says he'll go, just drop by to chat. The girl says she'll see him. The man advises the guy that if he wants this girl, he should hurry. The guy explains that even he wants her to get attached to this place. Tsukina says it's very cold outside and invites her inside. The man remains silent. Tsukina explains that no one has visited her in a while, and the man agrees. The man asks if she knows the man, to which Tsukina replies that he used to help her. The man says he's tired. She says she has no relatives. After her parents died, she was raised by her grandparents, but they're gone now. She explains that when she was preparing the cafe for opening alone, the man helped her. Tsukina says most of it is true, including that she lived alone in her world. The man listens silently. The guy explains that he understands and apologizes for reminding him of this. She tells him not to worry and asks what he'd like to eat today. She says that when he comes here, she doesn't feel lonely. The guy begins to speak, addressing Tsukina, and grabs her hand. Tsukina reports that the phone is ringing. The man says he will answer. The man starts to speak, but stops on the word you. The girl remains silent. The man turns the dial on the sound-making device and turns on the light. Tsukina looks at him and says something hesitantly, asking. The man says he needs to go. She asks what happened. The man explains that an urgent call has been issued because a powerful beast has appeared near the border. Tsukina only exclaims. The woman informs him that he is the knight captain, who is one of the first to go into battle to defend the country. The guy says to wait a second. The girl in the top right grabs a marble from the jar. Tsukina says she has nothing better, but the girl in the center right explains that it's a magical amulet that will protect her and offers to take it with her. She asks the man to be careful. The man thanks her. The man places a small ball in Tsukina's hand. The guy hugs Tsukina. She looks forward with surprise and embarrassment. The guy says it will take 2 or 3 days, but he'll be back. The girl asks if he'll be okay. Tsukina explains that's why she said handsome men are dangerous for her heart. The other guy reacts to this. She says that now she needs to get new books that he wanted to read. She reports that at the time she thought that in 2 or 3 days he would return to the cafe as usual. The boy explains that once upon a time, 4 nations lived in peace: water, earth, fire, and air. But everything changed when the Fire Nation waged war. Tsukina remains silent. The man asks about the beast's location, and the hooded man says it hasn't yet breached the barrier. The man explains he trusts them to track it, and the man with long hair asks Eel if he has a minute, and Eel confirms it. The guy says they need to discuss the placement of the traps. The man says that's good. Tsukina says it's a magical amulet that will protect him and offers to take it with him. The man with long hair squeezes his hand. The guy says that we need to sort this out quickly so we can see Tsukina. The boy reports that the rescuer has arrived to clean up. The man says the same thing with surprise. The guy says yes, and Tsukina asks why. The guy on the right says she said she wants to see the prince in action. The man and girl are sitting together, the man holding a glass. The guy on the left is leading a horse. The man reports that the eldest prince tried to stop her, but the girl says the prince will be there, and the man warns her it's too dangerous and she can't go with them. Tsukina says everything is fine, and the girl explains that horses are so scary. The guy says she doesn't listen to anyone at all and asks if he's making fun of her. The man calls for the captain, and the guy asks what else. The guy reports that the northeastern barrier has been breached and a pack of hungry wolves is already on its way. The man asks how many there are. The guy explains that there are about 50 of them, and they're approaching quickly with a huge leader. The beast makes a loud sound by stepping on the ground with its paw, after which the wolves begin to howl. The guy on the right says they're whispering, and the guy on the left says with a smile that they're fast. The man in the center orders everyone to prepare for battle and take their positions, then decisively says it's time to get rid of them. Sukina asks Bjork where the prince is. Bjork reports that his older brother is holding the prince in a tent and adds that it's understandable. A man says the pack will retreat if the leader is killed, and another man says he'll handle it. The next scene shows several men fighting wolves. The final scene shows two cloaked men standing behind a magic circle from which emerges a three-headed wolf. The boy says there are a lot of enemies and asks where the leader is. Sukina explains that, in her experience, the leader should be in the middle of the pack. The boy stands in the forest with a drawn sword, and rustling sounds are heard all around. The man says yes, yes. The man reports a rattling sound when holding the sword. The boy says it's him and orders them to move forward, and the man replies, okay. A huge creature with a horn and a monocle lets out a loud roar. The girl and the man watch the creature. The girl says it's just like in a movie, so creepy and scary. The man warns her not to get too close because it's dangerous. The girl asks if he'll save her if she gets into trouble. The man replies that he will, but with a caveat. A boy reports that the prince is on the front lines. A man says, "Prince," then expresses concern. A man orders the enemy to be lured away from the prince. 4 men rushed forward. 3 men with swords charged toward a large, horned creature that was breathing fire. Then the creature exploded. The guy reports hearing a rumbling sound in that area. The girl explains that it's the sound of falling rocks. Tsukina tells her to take her horse and ride to safety, and the boy shouts for Illa. The man orders Bjork to heal the prince with his magic, and Bjork replies that he understands. The girl and the man are worried about the prince. The man quickly moves forward. The guy strikes his opponent with his sword, cutting him down. Then, the guy stands confidently with the sword in his hands after the attack. Tsukina strikes the enormous beast, ripping its jaws open. A man and a woman watch the scene unfold. The girl is crying. The girl says she can't go any further. The guy says she needs to go faster. The girl screams, and the man next to her is surprised. The man with the sword notices the creature and says it has noticed the girl. The creature growls and approaches them. The guy says this can't be true and asks not to believe it. The image contains no speech bubbles or text, and the characters don't speak or convey anything. It appears to be a wolf with an open mouth attacking a man. A man gets stabbed in the back by Tsukina. The man explains he can't believe what happened. The man says it's impossible. The man says they must retreat immediately. A man falls to the ground with a sword in his hand, accompanied by the sound of impact. The guy reports that it's fallen apart and asks why it happened. The man explains that the gods. A boy yells at Il when a wounded man appears next to him. Il says they're more trouble now than they were when he was a kid. The man says, "Ah," and the man and Tsukina react to the appearance of a huge monster. The man shouts, "Ilu." The man and Tsukina prepare to attack together, and the man strikes the monster, knocking it back. The guy says he can't smile, but she explains he can. The guy says he can't smile, but she explains he can. Tsukina speaks to Tsukina. Tsukina closes the book. The outside of the house is visible, with a window behind which Tsukina stands. She explains that there are many different books in this world, and each one has its own story to tell. She says that books help us understand other people and their feelings. Tsukina reports that it's 7:30 a.m. Tsukina explains that it's time to go. She reports that a week has passed, and Il still hasn't come. She explains that she likes spending time alone but feels something is missing when Il isn't around. Tsukina says that she gave him one, so everything will be fine. She puts the ball in the bowl. She says she'll go into town tomorrow and find out what's going on with the cleanup, and at the same time says okay. The doorbell rings as the door opens. A man enters the room and asks if Tsukina is okay. Tsukina, sitting on the floor, looks surprised and stunned. The man limps, leaning on his arm. She says, "Phew." The man says he is glad he was able to see her again. Tsukina reports that the wounds look bad and asks if he's sure it was worth coming. The man says it hurts a little, but everything's fine, and he got there anyway. The man explains that he wanted to get there as quickly as possible, so he rushed to the doctor and got permission to leave. The woman listens to him. Tsukina thanks him for leaving fresh feed in the stable. The man says he's glad they're both okay. The man, looking at himself, explains that the wounds seem painful. She asks if the man is eating well. The man explains that the doctor told him to avoid heavy foods and asks if he can have some bread and stew. The girl says she'll make it now. Then she puts a pot of stew on the stove and a basket of bread lies nearby. The boy announces that the book he wanted to read has arrived. He explains that it will be difficult to read due to an injury to his hand, adding that for such injuries, healing magic can only be used once a day on one part of the body. The man says there aren't many people in the castle who can use protection, so he asks them to focus on the other knights since he can move now. The boy confirms this. Sukina asks if the protection was that heavy. The man explains that the problem wasn't the beast's strength, but the fact that the guy says he can't believe what's happening, after which the guy suddenly punches the other man, knocking him down. The guy reports that the ring is cracking. The man kicks, creating a magic circle that collides with the monster's paw. Tsukina announces that the school will be holding a drawing competition this year and explains that the winner will have the opportunity to exhibit their work in the city museum. The man says it's a barrier. The guy reports that the wound on his stomach has disappeared, then he laughs. The man says not to tell him that the barrier spell was layered with reflective and healing magic. Tsukina says she wants. The boy says that when he woke up, the royal family started crying and Bjork gave him a scolding. He explains that it was thanks to the girl's protective magic that he's still alive. The boy thinks about wanting to see Tsukina. The man says the girl saved him. Tsukina listens silently. The guy turns to Tsukina. She tells him that she's glowing. Tsukina explains that she understands this isn't the right thing to say to the knight's captain, but asks him not to be so reckless. She informs him that the man's hand should be fine and grabs it. The man asks if she was worried about him. Tsukina, surprised, asks if that's really the case. She says that until now, the guy came here almost every day, so when he's not there, she can't relax, and that she went out onto the porch every day and checked if he was coming. The guy says that, of course, he was worried. Tsukina asks if something is wrong. The man looks at her silently, and the man squeezes her hand. The boy begins to speak to Tsukina, but she suddenly exclaims that something is wrong. Then she and the boy look at the pot, which is steaming and making a boiling sound, after which the boy turns the knob on the stove. Tsukina asks to be forgiven for what she said. The man says he has nothing to say and thanks her for the healing. Now he can read. Tsukina asks if she can cast the spell once a day on one area and says she would be very grateful if the man doesn't mind. She says she'll scoop up some tea as usual. The man says everything is fine, he's quite knowledgeable about magic and knows a lot of spells. Tsukina says it would be great if she were the savior. The man asks if she's talking about the savior from the castle and wonders if she's heard anything. Tsukina says she's only heard a couple of rumors. The guy says it's clear. Tsukina says that if only she hadn't been there for the cleanup. She asks if Ill's wounds are also due to the savior. The man explains that it's delicious and eats it. The guy asks if he can stay until closing time today, and she says sure, but wonders if everything will be okay. The guy explains that he's been banned from working until he's fully recovered and that he prefers to stay away from the castle. A man with a cup asks why the knights suffered most of the damage this time because of the savior. A man with a bandage on his forehead explains that the high priests are debating whether to continue worshipping the savior, the person who brought the knights to the brink of destruction. A man in a military uniform. The man says that since he lives in the castle, he has no choice but to return there. The girl remains silent. The man drinks tea. Tsukina reports that the cafe has an additional room on the ground floor and a bathroom. The man asks the girl if she wants to stay here for a while. She explains that with her injuries, it's difficult to move around, and there's a guest room. The girl thinks he's so handsome and has a good personality that it's impossible to think badly of him. The man sighs and drinks from his cup. Tsukina says, "Only if you want." The man remains silent and places the cup on the table. Tsukina thinks that perhaps she shouldn't offer that. The man says that if she doesn't mind, he'll return to the castle tomorrow to pack his things. She says, well then, tomorrow. The man explains that tomorrow would be better, and he'll return to the castle to pack his things. She says, well, she'll. Tsukina reports that the door is locked, and explains that the key is in her pocket. The guy says he can't believe this happened. There is a knock at the door. She announces that she has arrived. A guy asks how another guy is doing and says hello, and the other guy replies that he is doing much better and asks how he is doing, noting that he has been working a lot lately. The guy says that they have few people now, and the man says that since then the savior has been behaving quite well. The man says that if he's not going to her, he'll knock on the door. The man smiles. The man smiles. The man looks at something on the bed. The man reports that the door is creaking. The man says to come in. The prince remains silent, looking down. The man and the boy turn to him, and the man exclaims, calling him prince. The guy says he can't afford to be weak because he has a family. The woman says she's sorry. The man asks her to raise her head. The man apologizes and says that he is truly very sorry, and also says that the knights were always there for him and he almost lost them all. The man says that if he can't find a way, he'll have to give up on the project. The guy explains that he doesn't want to give up and intends to keep looking for a solution. The man says he's always indulged her, even though he knows how much you suffer because of her selfishness. He explains that he knows a simple apology isn't enough and asks for another chance. The other man asks if that's a chance. The boy says he'll persuade her to learn magic by next month, by the end of the Aurora Festival. The man explains that if he fails, his father will give her permission to punish him. The man is silent. The boy is silent. The man in the white shirt says he can't afford to lose his job because he has a family. The man in the military uniform explains that if he can't complete the task, he'll be fired, and then he won't be able to support his family. The man with long dark hair says they need to find. The man says that if they're so determined, he's calm. The guy says that ultimately, love can be unpredictable, he knows that. Tsukina explains that they can't be sure the savior is listening to him, and the man says it's unlikely, but the people in the castle will only have to hold out for a month. The boy says it's surprising, but he's back to his old behavior. The man thanks him. The man closes the door. There is a folded blanket on the suitcase. Eel says he wanted to ask if another man had approached her with things. The man with the bandage on his forehead reacts with surprise. The guy says he's never seen anyone else be interested in someone, and Tsukina explains that love is a dangerous thing and could be unpredictable. The guy says he'll contact her if needed and asks her to have a good rest. She replies that she'll get a good rest. A man knocks on the door. Tsukina says that's exactly what she'll do. The man says it really is dangerous. The man sighs with relief. She greets the man and hopes he has a good rest. The man thanks Tsukina for letting him stay. Tsukina says she's happy, and the man says he's happy too. The man on the top right says the wounds are healing quickly and tells her not to worry. The man on the left says it's thanks to the medicine he prepared. She explains in the bottom right that the medicine helps the body recover faster, and the man on the left says she can now go about her business without worry. Tsukina says she thought this passage was in another part. The man says it could be a continuation from the previous chapter. Both remain silent. She announces that breakfast is almost ready. The man says good morning and thanks her. She says good morning and announces that she made tea. The man gently takes a strand of Tsukina's hair and she exclaims. Tsukina says she's just happy he's wearing a hair garter and apologizes, asking if she scared him. He replies by asking what exactly. She says she really likes it and thanks him. The man smiles. The boy explains that there are people in this world who can see spirits, and that this isn't always a good thing, because spirits can cause harm. Tsukina explains that she too sees spirits, and therefore tries to help people who encounter them. She says they seem to be getting closer lately, and wonders if she's imagining it. Then she says she wonders what Il thinks of me. The man takes a cup and takes a sip. She prepares food and places it on a plate. Tsukina says that thanks to the man, he almost liked her, so if he needs to go shopping, he'll go with her. The man points this out to Tsukina. She says she's counting on help. She explains that she was planning to use a coupon to get more ingredients, but someone will probably think that's weird. The man says after breakfast then. The girl says she'll teleport them over as soon as they're done. Tsukina says it's high-level magic, as usual, and offers to ride her horse. The man replies. She speaks quietly. The man with long hair looks at her with bewilderment. The horse lies on the grass and breathes heavily. Tsukina says that next time it will work out somehow. A glowing magic circle with a sound effect appears on the street between the buildings. The guy says it's a portal that connects different cities and explains that it can transport people in the blink of an eye. Tsukina says it's amazing and asks if it can be used for travel. The guy says yes, but warns that the portal requires a lot of energy and should be used with caution. The man says he's never tried teleportation, but thought it made him dizzy. She explains that it only works over long distances, and the city is close, so teleporting here takes only seconds. The man extends his hand to Tsukina. The man says there are too many people here. The boy takes Tsukina's hand. The boy and Tsukina walk holding hands. Tsukina says he must feel something for her. She says the market is very big, but the man says it only opens once a week, and you can find a lot of things at a great price. Tsukina says it looks delicious. The man orders a dessert, and the clerk accepts. Tsukina thanks him, and the man replies that it's his thanks. Tsukina asks for used books, and the clerk is surprised. Tsukina thanks him for his purchase, and the man remarks that the shopkeepers are acting strangely. The guy says it would be great if it looked like a date from the outside. Tsukina asks what the Aurora Festival is. The man says there are 2 weeks left and asks Tsukina if she has never been. She explains that it is the largest annual festival in the country. Tsukina says she always sits in the café and has never been there before, and the man explains that every year the sky is illuminated by the northern lights, and the festival lasts all day. The man says he'll have the day off, and Tsukina explains that it should be beautiful. The guy asks Tsukina if she wants to go with him. Tsukina says she'd be happy to. The man says he's looking forward to it and agrees. The guy asks where they're going next. The girl asks what he'd like for dinner. The guy suggests fish. Tsukina says they'll go to the fishmonger then. She explains that they only have a little time left to spend together, as he's almost recovered, and she doesn't want him to become just a cafe guest again. Tsukina reveals that she asked him about his feelings for her at the festival. The man says that they shouldn't share the translation on other platforms like TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and so on if they want to continue reading it. The girl listens to him. The man thanks Tsukina for her treatment, and Tsukina says it makes her happy. The man says that thanks to Tsukina's healing magic, he can return to work sooner than planned. She explains that she's gotten used to his presence and will be a little lonely. The man explains that a lot of work has piled up while he was resting, and she says it looks like they won't see each other for a while. Tsukina tells the horse to come back. A man stands nearby and watches them. The guy says he'll try to sort everything out before the festival starts and arrive early, so they should go together. She says fine and is looking forward to it. Tsukina says yes, then pauses. She explains that these are merely her attempts to strengthen the defensive magic, but offers to use them for the knightly order if desired. The man says that one protective stone of this level could buy an entire house, and expresses gratitude to Tsukina, but is unsure. She explains that the stones are actually made of lava, but are worth the same as the puff she used. The guy says it's for Tsukina, and she fastens the brooch. Tsukina explains that as thanks for the hair tie, she thought the brooch would be appropriate. She says she'll be very worried if something happens to the guy and he doesn't return to the cafe. She says she can't believe he said that, and that she's happy. The man says he's happy too. Tsukina says she's always been good at protective and healing magic, and the man thanks her for the protective spells that never cease to amaze him. The guy says he's looking forward to the festival. The man explains that, like him, he'll be sitting at the table nonstop, hoping to return as soon as possible. Tsukina reports that the house feels so empty. The guy says that there is only one door in this building, and explains that if the door is locked, you need to wait until it is opened. The boy asks how the man's wounds are, and says he's glad to hear it, assuming it's due to the healing power of love. The man replies that he's fully recovered. The boy explains that the stern captain of the nightly squad, who had refused many blind dates, was spotted by his subordinates walking. The guy asks if this is Tsukina, and says that when their friendship began, it could be called childhood friendship. Tsukina says that no. The guy says he doesn't understand what's going on, and the man remains silent. Tsukina says she said they're not dating yet. The guy explains that he took the girl's hand so she wouldn't get lost, and says that women usually refuse such things if they don't like it. The man says that they were holding hands. A guy asks if another guy is serious about a girl. The other guy asks if it's a problem. The guy explains that he and Tsukina are not actually dating, and adds that when he tries to tell her about his feelings, everything doesn't go as smoothly as he would like. The guy reports that it seems like all that time, when the other one wasn't interested in romance, he's returned for revenge, and clarifies that he's been with her for the last few days. He adds that she said he could stay with her if he wasn't comfortable in the castle, so he allowed himself to be there for a while. The guy says the festival this year is supposed to be truly grand, and suggests inviting a girl there so he won't have to confess. The man replies that he already invited her, and she accepted. The guy says the man already asked her. The man with his eyes closed says that first she needs to open the door. The guy with his eyes closed and arms crossed says that then everything will be fine and that she needs to make her intentions known before someone else takes her away. The guy says yes and warns him not to leave. The man asks what's in the box. The man says he knows what the boy is thinking. The boy says yes and shows a chest with twinkling stars. The guy says they can buy a palace and asks why there are so many high-level protective stones. Tsukina explains that they're a gift, the knight's order can use them, so she'll give them to everyone upon her return. The man confirms that they're all free. The man says he'll deliver a couple of them to his majesty, his family, and his assistants tomorrow, and offers to take one now if he wants. The young man says he's very grateful for such a valuable gift and asks him to be careful. The guy asks if this is what saved Tsukina back then. Tsukina says that she made these stones and the one who saved her herself. The guy with long dark hair says she's even more reserved than he is and didn't even know about the Aurora Festival. The guy in the military uniform says the other guy is lucky they met. The guy with short blonde hair asks if she's the only one treating him. A guy grabs a stack of papers and looks at them carefully. A man turns to him saying, "Hey." The man says there's a lot here, but he can handle it, and offers to lend a hand. A man reports that another man was overloaded with work while he was relaxing. The second man says everything is fine and asks him to simply be grateful for such a childhood friend. The guy tells her he finally called her. The man stands silently nearby. A man reacts to the sound of a clap. The guy says, "Oh my God." The man says, "You can't screw everything up." Tsukina reports that after a thorough search, she found something about the saviors, and explains that when a savior uses great magic, a circle with the symbols of the desired spell appears on their body. She announces that she has arrived. The man explains that he will now open the window. Sukina takes a deep breath and exhales. She stands intently in the center of the magic circle, surrounded by glowing lines and symbols. The guy makes a rustling sound. Sukina says that she asked for the symbol to be placed on the back of her head so that it would not be visible, but it glows above her hair, and it will immediately be clear to others that she is the savior. She says she thought that if she could use her powers unnoticed, she could protect everyone no matter what the young savior did, but Sukina explains that in the past, there were saviors who lost control of magic. She explains that when this happened, a large, magical symbol, similar to one of the symbols of great magic, would appear in the sky and destroy an entire country. She says it's impossible to lose control of her magic and asks if they're joking with her. She then says she doesn't know what to do. Tsukina says that Zil is fighting with all his might to protect this country and that he cannot sit idly by. She says that he doesn't approve of a savior who does nothing, and adds that she does the same thing. Tsukina says she has the power to protect everyone, but she still sits with books all day. The girl says she doesn't want to be hated. Tsukina says she can't understand why she can't concentrate, no matter how hard she tries. She explains that she feels helpless and tired and says she needs to find a way to cope. The date marked on a calendar is the 14th. She looks at the calendar. Tsukina reports that it will be tomorrow. A voice asks the little savior to be quiet. Tsukina says the girl never touched the magic books. The man remains silent. The man says he's told her many times, but if the girl wants to stay here, she must learn at least one spell by tomorrow. The guy says they're out of time and asks them to learn just one thing. The man asks if that's good. Tsukina is silent. A magical symbol appears on Tsukina's hand, and she breaks something with a distinctive sound. The man says that if he finds out that she's the savior, he will definitely hate her. Tsukina is glad to see the man. The man says he's glad to see her too. The man explains he wanted to arrive earlier but barely finished work. Tsukina asks if he's okay. The man says he wanted to watch Aurora with Tsukina, no matter what. A man extends his hand to a girl, and she looks at him. Tsukina says she thanks him. The man says he gave something to the girl. The man leaves. She says it's bad. The man explains that it's bad. The boy says they'll go to a stable for horses. Tsukina says she's never ridden a horse. The boy explains that if she holds on to him, everything will be fine. Tsukina notes how close and how high. She hesitantly holds on to the man, noticing his hand. The guy, confused, asks what it is and what shoujo manga is. He also says he's in his 30s and wonders what people draw. At the bottom left, it says they got there. Tsukina says this heavenly hell is finally over. She says it's very quiet here for a festival. The man explains that everyone came to see the palace first, which is why it's so quiet. He says the palace will disappear in about an hour and then the shops will open. The man suggests they take a short walk, explaining that there's a spot from which he watches the palace. The man extends his hand. The girl looks at him in surprise. The man and girl walk hand in hand. Tsukina says it looks so natural when they hold hands. She says that the sky is so clearly visible from here, and the man explains that Bjork told him about this place. Tsukina asks if he'll be coming today. The man explains that he's the vice captain, so every year they swap shifts and accompany the royal family. She says it's so mesmerizing. The man replies that it is. She asks if it's normal to have hope. The guy says it's about to start. Then the guy and Tsukina stand, looking at the starry sky through the trees. The man says the northern lights are lights that appear when particles emitted by the sun collide with the Earth's atmosphere. She explains that this phenomenon can only be observed in certain places and at certain times of the year. The man asks if Tsukina likes it. Tsukina says she does, and thanks him for bringing her here. She says there's nothing in this world that can't be changed with effort. He explains that even if it seems like all is lost now, there's always a chance to make things right. The guy talks to Tsukina. Tsukina says it's not good. The girl says she really likes him. The woman notices something falling, and at that moment the man grabs her. The man tells the woman that she should sleep. The woman is surprised. Tsukina says the sky has turned red. Then they show meteors or fiery objects rapidly falling from the sky. A girl with long blonde hair watches with surprise and alarm. Below, two characters stand on the ground, watching the falling fiery objects. The boy raises his hand and destroys the stone surface, causing an explosion. The girl clings to the boy. The man asks Tsukina if she's okay, and Tsukina replies that she is. The man supports Tsukina, who is shaking. She says it's worthless if she can't use magic when she needs to, and that it's pathetic, no matter what magic she knows. The man asks what the hell. The man with the compass asks Il if he's okay. Il replies that they're fine and asks how things are. Top right, Tsukina says she did it. Bottom right, Tsukina explains that it's what she saw in a book, a magic circle when a rescuer loses control. Bottom left, a man says, "Why? Why?" Bottom right, a man says it looks like the rescuer will prefer. The boy is silent. The girl cries and says that she kept saying she didn't want to study, but everyone tried to force her by locking her in her room. The girl tells the prince that he understands and asks him not to hurt her, and the prince explains that he's not ill. The man with the knife asks what's going on. It's reported that the prince has wounded the rescuer. The man and Tsukina look on with alarm. She warns a man named Ilm about the approaching second wave. Ilm answers her. The boy asks the prince to step aside. The girl cries and sobs. The boy screams that the savior is simply indulging her greed and taking everything from them, and asks why she's saving them. The boy explains to the girl that he doesn't understand why a savior is needed. Tsukina looks on in surprise. The boy touches the girl's head and says something to her. She says that her eyes reflect the image of another person. The guy asks what he's doing. The man says he came into this world. In the top right, a man announces that the girl has fallen in love with someone. Below, the man explains that if something happens, no matter what she decides, it will be her choice. In the bottom left, the man addresses Tsukina by name. The man asks Tsukina what happened to her and whether she hurt herself. Tsukina smiles. She says she likes him not as a visitor, but as a person. The man responds with surprise. She explains that it's complicated, but Tsukina hopes she won't be hated after this. The man calls her by name with surprise. She announces that she won't fight this time. She explains that she doesn't want to take any risks because she's not confident in her abilities. Tsukina places her hand on her forehead. The man looks forward. Tsukina and the man are in a magic circle. Tsukina says that if it were possible, she would like to hide this. A man says he just wants to smile with you. The boy casts a spell, creating a magic circle, and the man turns to Tsukina, saying that this is... A man with a bandage over his face and another man in uniform look at a glowing magical ring in the sky. A woman with long hair and a man holding a child watch the scene. A group of people, including a man in a crown and a woman in a cloak, are surprised, and the man in the crown says he can't believe it. The boy asks if the wounds have healed. The man says it's a miracle. The girl says Tsukina did a great job and returns someone. The man calls Tsukina by name. She thanks him for protecting the world and says she didn't do it for the man's sake. Then she says, after which she says the festival was fun and thanks him for the invitation. The man addresses Tsukina by name. A man grabs a girl by the hand. The man explains that it's magic. The boy asks Tsukina if she's telling him she's also a savior. Tsukina asks him to forgive her for hiding it. She says she's returning home and that the magic should have worn off by now, but warns him to be careful on the way back. The man reacts to this with an exclamation. The boy casts a spell, summoning a glowing stream of energy. The next panel depicts a house among the trees at night. Tsukina reports feeling dizzy and experiencing magical exhaustion. She says that one such spell of great magic should be enough for several decades. She informs him that everything will be fine for a while, but he probably won't come again. She explains that he will either come, but only on an official visit. The man says they'll never spend time the same way again. The woman says it's true. Tsukina says she confessed to him, but hopes he won't be so angry. She says it's already morning and she's tired, but the magic is still at a low level. She explains that it doesn't look like anyone will be coming and says it smells nice. The man touches something with his hand and there's contact. The guy asks if she's awake. Tsukina shudders. Tsukina reports that she is sleepy. The man asks if the girl has arrived. The girl is silent and looks at him. The man smiles. The boy says that the protective spells Tsukina gave them were very helpful and thanks her. Tsukina explains that if he means she's the savior, then even though she's been hiding it from him all this time and hasn't done anything as the savior. She explains that if the interlocutor is doing this only to get her assistance, the man reports that, after confessing, he realized that with her powerful magic and the fact that she didn't know about the author's festival, which even children know about, he should have realized it sooner. The man says he's never thought about it and hasn't told anyone that Tsukina is the savior, but the whole country is looking for her. Tsukina says they don't really need it right now and is surprised. The barrier is said to cover the entire country, and all knights inside it are healed while all attacks outside are repelled. The man says that everyone understands that only the new savior is capable of doing such a thing, which is why they are so desperately looking for Tsukina. The man says it looks like they want to formally welcome her as a guest. Tsukina remains silent. The man scratches his chin. She explains that polygamy is accepted in this country, so a savior who can use great magic will likely have many suitors who will ask for her hand in marriage. Tsukina says that frankly she doesn't like it. She says she wants her to be hers and only hers. The man says he can't believe it himself, but that's the only reason he hasn't revealed her identity. Tsukina says she can't believe he actually said that. She explains that it was unexpected and made her heart beat faster. She asks if he is sure, to which he replies that he is. Tsukina says that her feelings haven't changed and she wants to be with him, but explains that she didn't think it would lead to this. She says she's never been given such a big bouquet. The man looks at her with a slight smile. They stand next to each other, and she hands him the bouquet of flowers. The man says the girl's magic hasn't recovered yet and she needs to rest, and Tsukina says she wants to sleep again. The man approaches Tsukina and touches her shoulder. The man explains to Tsukina that she's come all the way here. Then the man and she sit together on a bench, the man holding a bouquet of flowers, and she leaning against him. The man says he has the day off. Tsukina says she'll be there when he wakes up. The man says that there will be peace in this country for a very long time, and all thanks to your magic, she. The guy reports that it turns out Il really didn't tell anyone about the girl. The man remains silent. The guy says the prince asked for the ultimate punishment for wounding his savior, but because there were miraculously no casualties, he was simply placed under arrest. It is reported that he and Il are engaged. Tsukina says she's met his parents. The man explains they've already given up hope he'll get married. The woman thanks Tsukina. She announces that she's home, and the man on the horse says he wishes Il a welcome home. The text block states that Il now lives with Tsukina in a cafe and goes to the castle. Tsukina reports that the protective stones and restorative potions she sold to the knights are still holding, but that doesn't mean the monsters have been destroyed, and there's talk of a certain demon king. The man says they're magnificent and is counting on Tsukina this time too. The guy tells Tsukina. She says that, however, Tsukina informs him that she is leaving the role of protector of the world to the next young savior who appears here, and that she is diligently protecting the happiness she has. The man thanks her, and Tsukina says she'll go get some fragrant tea. She says that chapters are published in their VK group before they are published in the readers' rooms. The man smiles silently. The guy says he has made a decision. The man says he can learn the spells on his own. He explains that when you arrive in this world, you'll already have powerful magic, but the boy says that having the innate potential of his magic exceeds what he could do through hard work alone, and this will make it easier for him to save the world as a savior. The man says that he will fulfill the wish, and informs that he will entrust the care of the other world. The guy says that he will fulfill his role as a savior and confirms this with the word of course. It's been some time since he sent a good candidate, and he will try to do what the people there want him to do, but I wonder if he will succeed. The snowy land of Osela. Tsukina reveals that she was forced to come here as a savior by a ball calling itself God, so she runs a book cafe in a quiet corner of the land. She says she thinks it's just in time. On the table in front of her are 2 cups of drink, 3 small containers with various additives, and a plate with pancakes and berries. The stairs creak. Tsukina reports that after a few months, she stopped living alone. She tells him he can stay here if he wants, but warns him that the house is full of strange things. The man explains that he's not afraid and wants to stay. Salal says good morning to Tsukina, and Tsukina says good morning to Ilu. The text reveals that Salal is Tsukina's fiancé, a little older than her, and a captain of the knights. The man says they were planning to get married, but he yawns. The woman says he looks tired and apologizes. Tsukina reports that everything is fine, and, as usual, she casts restoration magic on the man's tea. The man thanks her. The text block states that he is still dealing with the aftermath of the savior incident. The savior who caused the incident was reportedly a young girl with whom the country's second prince had fallen in love. She refused to learn the spells required of her, instead living in the castle and doing whatever she pleased. This reportedly caused her to become angry and her magic to spiral out of control. It is said that at one point the prince disagreed with what she wanted. In a fit of laughter, when she almost destroyed the country, God took her away. The text says that there was a need to use great magic, which is why everything ended without casualties, but Tsukina says she found out he was the savior and thought he would hate her, and that would be the end of it. She reports that, fortunately, he accepted her as the savior and kept it a secret. With the knights and the country running wild in their search for the savior, they became engaged but postponed the wedding. She reports that they carefully guard their wedding rings while working to avoid losing them. Tsukina says the food in this house is always delicious, and she says she enjoys it. The man explains that this is thanks to the chef, who carefully selects ingredients and monitors the quality of the dishes. The man says the soup is delicious and warms him up. She smiles. Despite all the circumstances, our relationship has not changed. The man says the wind is quite strong today, and he heard it's supposed to be sunny in a few days, but it's unclear yet. Tsukina says that if the weather is good, she'd like to read outside on the weekend. The man explains that it's a good idea and was curious about the new books that the guy asks her if she's going to the Knights today. She says she'll go tomorrow. The man reports that the protective amulets and healing potions Sukina provided were very useful, and Sukina says she is glad they were useful. The guy smiles. She says that the knights he works with have become just as important to her. The man says he has to go. Sukina says they'll see each other later, then falls silent, then hangs her head and says she's exhausted. The girl says that she had never even thought about getting married before. The man asks what happened to the girl, then explains that she won't be here anymore, and that's all he can say. The man apologizes for the incident and says that the girl really helped him out. Sukina says that the girl is a god, and the man replies that it's clear. The guy congratulates Sukina on her engagement. She says thank you and thinks that they just don't say that he saw it. The woman says she's surprised, in any case, that Sukina fulfilled her role as savior so well, even after saying it was impossible for her. Sukina says she wasn't involved in killing monsters or anything like that. The woman explains that she wants to know what Sukina thinks about what savior means. She says a lifeguard kills monsters and brings peace, traveling through the world like in video games. The man explains that the definition of this world is slightly different. He explains that for the people of this world, a lifeguard is someone who uses powerful magic to solve problems in emergency situations, while for him, Tsukina remained silent. The man says that the girl fulfilled both duties as a savior, so she really did save him. The man explains that this is precisely why the girl should live the way she wants. He then says that he came to say this, but he is going to check on saviors in other countries and that he has sent another savior to this country. She says that it is good. Tsukina says she doesn't understand. There are 2 glasses of wine on the table, sliced bread with lemon and herbs, and plates with various dishes nearby. The guy says that no matter how much he experiences this, coming home and eating food cooked by a girl makes him happy. Tsukina explains that it's because he told her she has a reason to cook. A man announces that a new savior has arrived at the castle today. She asks what this savior is like. The man explains that he is a cheerful young man of about 25. After the last savior, everyone is a little cautious, but he shows determination to study magic, and this determination seems genuine. Tsukina says this is very encouraging. The man explains that perhaps he's just overestimating it, but hopes this determination won't be in vain. Then the man repeats the word simple, and Tsukina asks if it's simple. The man says that judging by his character, he is a good person, and she says that such an incident should not happen again. Tsukina says that's fine, that's good, and asks if there's another rescuer in that country. The man explains that the country the rescuer goes to, unless they specifically request it, is random, but there is an exception. She asks why. The girl says that she deliberately doesn't send rescuers to the big country between here and the ocean. The man says that the leaders of this country want to use the saviors to take over the world, and if he's not careful, they'll drag the whole world into war. Tsukina says, the man explains that they probably know about the great magical barrier surrounding this country, so Tsukina should also be careful. She says that's good. The man explains that this is why they desperately want a savior. The guy says this savior is burning with passion to save the world, and surprisingly, the situation in a large country can be resolved. But Tsukina says that someone so determined has arrived here. The girl reports that Tsukina looks unusually happy. The man explains that he doesn't want any more incidents like this because the arrival of such a savior. She says she can read the book another time. The man says the book was quite interesting, especially at the end, but she asks him not to spoil it and stops him. The guy says he's joking. Tsukina is surprised and embarrassed. She says that if possible, she would like these smiling days with ill to last forever. The image has no characters or speech, but shows a winter landscape with a large building behind a stone fence and gates against a backdrop of mountains. The man says the gates are closed and explains that entry is only possible with a pass. Tsukina explains that she doesn't have a pass but needs to get in. The man says she can't get in without a pass. A man greets Tsukina and thanks her. She greets him and says she's brought protective amulets and potions. A man, with his hand raised, explains that this is the knight's headquarters. Another man notes the high quality of the amulets and says there are a lot of them here. She says, the man says that this is a new savior, Tsukina says that it is the same one, and the guy says hello. Against the backdrop of mountains and a castle, a magical seal is depicted in the sky, from which luminous particles emanate. A man says they are chatting, and another man explains that they are fussing. The guy reports that he heard about the arrival of a new savior to the castle. The guy asks if it's different from the one who put up the barrier. The man asks if it's the same one that was in the castle before, and the woman says that yes, it's not one of them. The boy hopes there won't be any strange problems this time and says he's curious about the new savior. The girl agrees. The man says he's also curious about the savior who erected this barrier for them. The man says he's curious why they haven't revealed themselves yet, and Tsukina says she's curious too. Yuta says his name is Yuta, and he is training to become a savior. She says it is nice to meet you. Tsukina nods and says he's different from the previous savior, just as God said. The man announces they're done checking the items. She reports that the protective amulets and potions are fine, and the man says that's good. The guy asks what the protective amulets do, then explains with some hesitation. The guy explains that when a person is about to be fatally wounded, the protective amulet automatically creates a barrier around them, which has significantly reduced the number of serious injuries, Tsukina says. Two men report that even one of these would normally cost more than a house, but they get them for cheap, and that they haven't had any more deaths. The guy says it's amazing. She says she's glad they're useful and repeats the word death. The men explain that knights live in a world close to. Tsukina apologizes. The guy asks if Tsukina made these amulets, to which she confirms. The guy is silent. The guy asks if he can create such things too. She says that he suspected something. The guy says these are much better than the ones sold at the market. They not only protect, but also heal and repel enemy attacks. The man explains that, if he's not mistaken, there were books about this in the castle. The guy says they're so hard to make. The man says there's no one in the castle who can make them at that level. The boy says it's great that you can cast so many spells, and that he should try his best too, asking for help with his training if he gets stuck. Tsukina says she's always been good at restorative and defensive magic and agrees to help. The boy apologizes for not knowing her name yet. She says that her name is She. The guy thanks Tsukina and asks to see a book about it. She agrees and invites him to follow her. Tsukina confirms, and the guy notices that she's quite energetic. Tsukina exhales. The guy says everyone is thrilled that he's working hard to save the world, and even said he wants to go with the knights to fight monsters soon. She says she hopes the country will become more peaceful with him. The man confirms this. Tsukina says that since they have more newcomers, they can ask for additional amulets, and the man agrees. The man says they are looking forward to marrying the captain. The guy on the right says we'll see. The one on the left says she thinks she can get that much done before the next delivery. In the right panel, Tsukina asks if her mother is okay. In the left panel, a man explains to a woman that she is coughing. She says that all this time she's only sold items to knights, but she's curious about the potion situation at the city hospital. The man says he'll ask Ila later. Birds are flying over the roof of the house. Tsukina says she welcomes you home. The man announces he's back. There's a fork on the table and a glass with a drink next to it. On the plate in the center is a piece of meat with sauce and a vegetable garnish. In the upper left is part of a dish with shrimp and cherry tomatoes, and in the lower left is part of another plate with food. In the background, Tsukina reports that today, when she went to see the knights, she met a new savior, and despite him just arriving, he was very friendly with them. The man says he said he wanted to observe the knights. She reports that he said he wanted to learn how to make protective amulets like the one she made, and then immediately left for the castle. The man explains that many books on magic had disappeared, and the library bookshelves were half empty. She says he's overwhelmed with motivation, half. The guy says that it was because the girl was locked up here that he found this cozy cafe. Tsukina reports that they were able to fall in love with each other. The man explains that the girl now works with the knights, and that's only good for him. She says she's glad to hear it from him, but begins to speak hesitantly. Tsukina asks him if he thinks her potions could be useful to someone other than the knights, for example in the city hospital. The man says he thought she wanted to keep a low profile and asks is she sure. Tsukina says she'd already given up on that when she started working with the knights. She says she doesn't want people to reveal her identity. The guy says this country has become his second home. The girl explains that if she can do anything for the people living there, she'd like to try. The man is silent. Tsukina asks if he says anything. The man explains that he is glad that she liked this world, and says that he is even happier knowing that she cares about this country as much as he does. The man reports that state hospitals have doctors who administer medications between patients. He explains that tomorrow he'll inquire about those near the castle and is sure that some of them will be happy to accommodate him. Tsukina says it's good and thanks Il. Il smiles back. The man says he has Tsukina to thank. Tsukina says she might not be as active as Yuta-san, but she wants to work as hard as she can in her own way. Yuta says dinner was delicious today, and Tsukina says she's glad. The sounds of birds chirping can be heard. She asks if he'll be making the delivery today, and he says he planned to. The man regretfully says that he's sorry that Tsukina always has to go alone, and that it's hard, and that it would be nice if she could teleport directly there using magic. Tsukina explains that magic can't be used within the castle walls against intruders, so nothing can be done. She reveals that she was actually thinking of casting magic on the protective amulets to make them lighter, but the effect is weakening. She explains that as for the pendant from God, which allows one to summon anything, it could only summon with a weaker effect, but even if she had to do a little more work, she'd still be fine. The right panel depicts a magic circle hovering above the trees. The left panel shows the entrance to the city, through which a man passes, surrounded by a glowing barrier. Tsukina informs him that there is only one exit to the castle, and if anyone tries to escape, they will be caught immediately. The man explains that security is very strict and no one will be able to pass unnoticed. The man asks to pass, and she says that she brought more amulets. She walks along the path to the castle. Tsukina says that you only need to walk a short distance from the gate to the castle. She notices a rustling sound and asks if there's an animal there. Then she hears a loud rustling in the leaves. Tsukina says she can't believe this happened. The sound of stamping feet. Tsukina says she doesn't understand how this is possible. She says she doesn't understand why this is happening. The hooded man smiles. The hooded man growls. The hooded man sits on a bench and looks at the wolf. The guy says she looks very beautiful and asks her not to run away. Tsukina says she has no intention of running away. The large monster roars and lunges forward. She runs, carrying the box, and notices something under her feet. The monster's claws stomp on the ground. The wolf says he can't let Tsukina leave because she's too important to him. Tsukina says she has no intention of running away and will stay by his side to help. She is shaking and asking to give her some magic. The guy breaks a glass ball, making a crunching sound, and destroys the bars, after which he suddenly attacks the beast, delivering a series of powerful blows. Tsukina says that she is. In the next scene, the sounds of blows are heard. Tsukina says that she is. The boy says he's tired. The man stands with his hand raised in front of a crack in the ground, and the girl stands opposite him. Tsukina says, "Spa." Then she says, The sound of a twitching paw is heard nearby, followed by a message that someone has gotten up. The boy expresses surprise. The girl notices the wolf approaching and screams, covering her head with her hands as the wolf lunges at her. The man reports that the target has been eliminated and orders them to make sure he doesn't get up again, to which the other man agrees. The boy asks Tsukina if she's okay, and Tsukina sighs and calls him Bjork-san. The guy asks if she is hurt. She thanks him and explains that the savior saved her, so everything is fine. The boy says his blood runs cold and explains that not only has a monster appeared in the castle where great magic should have held it at bay, but his best friend's fiancé has also been attacked. Tsukina explains that she herself didn't expect the monster to attack. The man flees. The guy says it is. The guy says that if he could kill him with one shot, he wouldn't try to attack them again. Tsukina listens. She says that if he hadn't come to save her, they wouldn't be talking like this now. Tsukina says, "Thank you very much." A man stands nearby. The guy says he'll go help them. The girl asks, "Ha." The guy says he should thank them. Then several people walk away. The guy asks Tsukina if she's hurt and says he'll hand over the protective amulets to the person in charge, but wonders if she'll make it to the cafe on her own. Tsukina confirms she will. The boy explains that he'd really like to call Il, since he's the one in charge in situations like this. The man says that after a monster appears in a well-fortified castle, they'll need to determine where it came from and whether there are any other hiding places. Tsukina says she's fine and asks to let Il focus on work. The man apologizes and Tsukina replies that everything is fine. The man explains that he'll walk Tsukina to the gate just in case, as more monsters might be lurking behind it and they need to hurry. Tsukina asks. She says sorry for that and thank you. A man clicks the door handle, after which the door closes. Tsukina says ha, and then says that while there is time, she will clean up and cook dinner. She washes the dishes, making gurgling and rustling sounds. Then she dusts the shelves, making rustling sounds. The roof of a house and dark silhouettes of trees are depicted against the backdrop of falling snow. The guy says that the house has a fireplace that can be used for heating and explains that the furniture is arranged to create a cozy atmosphere. Tsukina reports that she can't concentrate. Then she stretches and makes a noise that expresses effort. She says, "Ah," and adjusts her glasses. The girl says, "Welcome." A man grabs a girl by the wrist. Tsukina clutches the man's coat. The man asks if she's hurt. Tsukina says she's fine, but it was still scary. The man apologizes for not being able to come to Tsukina right away. She says everything is fine and that it's perfectly reasonable, explaining that if he had come, she would have had to ask him to return to work later. Tsukina says she's tired. Then Tsukina snuggles up to the man. The man and Tsukina look at each other. She says he must have run home as fast as he could and asks what kind of monster it was. The man says he doesn't know, but reports that no one else was found during a search of the castle grounds, and there were no problems with the barrier and protective magic of the castle. The guy says it looks like someone brought him there. The man explains that they've beefed up security and are monitoring the entire city, so if anything happens, they'll be there. The girl says it's okay. Tsukina says she wonders if people were afraid of monsters when there was no barrier, and reports that even after meeting just one of them, she couldn't do anything. The man speaks to Tsukina, addressing her by name. She apologizes and explains that she was just lost in thought. Tsukina asks if the people in the castle know that she healed Il with magic when he was injured, and Il replies that everyone knows. Il washes the dishes, and Tsukina says she's wondering if there's anything she can do. A man calls out to Il. She says that if there are casualties and there aren't enough potions, she'll help too. The man says that would be great. Not a single monster appeared on the castle grounds anymore, and it became normal to see so many soldiers around, and Tsukina reports that there was another change to the familiar scene. The man greets Tsukina. The guy says he'll help her carry it again. She thanks him and apologizes. Yuta says that helping people is a lifeguard's job and asks her not to worry about it. The girl thanks Yuta for helping with the laundry. The woman tells Yuta that flowers have started to bloom in the flower bed he helped weed, to which Yuta replies that he'll definitely look at them later. Tsukina reports that a few days ago, while she was shopping in the city, one of the store owners seemed very happy and was talking about how they had been helped. The man says he's glad the woman is happy. The text says he's hardworking and has a friendly personality, which is probably why people hear. The boy says that when he was little, he always saw it on TV. Then he explains that TV is somewhat like a theater in this world, but the boy says he always admired the heroes he saw there. 3 smiling children are shown on the TV screen. The guy says he wanted to be the kind of hero who would make people in trouble smile. Tsukina asks, "Is that so?" The boy explains that it's a little awkward, but even after growing up, he kept thinking about it. The girl explains that when he helped them and thanked her with a smile, she thought this was truly what he wanted to do. The boy explains that's why he was happy to be here. The guy says he will definitely become a savior. Tsukina says he's an amazing person. The man says she saved him back then and that he'll help her if anything happens, to which Tsukina thanks him. It had been several months since she had encountered him during a delivery, and he had helped her carry, and they had talked during the short walk to the knight's headquarters. The guy says he learned a spell today, and once he's done with it, he'll do something else. Tsukina listens to him. The man says that today his teacher said he can't make protective amulets. She says, "Huh?" The man says, "Oh, right." The boy says his magic is too strong, causing even the strongest mineral to shatter. Tsukina says he thought learning to control his magic would help, but it didn't. She says it's a good thing the previous savior wasn't as strong as Yuta-san, and so she apologizes. Yuta explains that this time he'll go with the knights to fight the monsters and borrow one of their protective amulets. She's surprised, asking if it's against monsters. The boy explains that the activation only occurs when near death and asks for caution. Tsukina thanks him. The boy explains that this time he'll simply observe and leave everything to the knights, but he'd like to take advantage of the opportunity to fight if it arises. The woman warns him to be careful, Tsukina explains. She says she can't understand why he did this and explains that it makes her doubtful. She says she wants to get to the bottom of the situation and asks for an explanation. Tsukina tells Ilu, Yaota-san, and all the other knights to please return safely. The man says that they can handle the rest themselves, and the girl says that she is making a delivery. Tsukina talks about the monster hunt yesterday. The man reports that it ended without casualties. Tsukina thinks that's a good thing. She says that Illa said that he would stay in his room in the castle afterwards because she wasn't sure, and says that he will return in 2 days. She asks if Illa's room is here. The man remains silent. Tsukina says she sees Yuta-san. Tsukina expresses surprise. The boy says he can't afford to be weak because it will mean death. The man explains that if he can't handle this, he will die. The boy nods and says he understands. 2 men on the porch say it's going to rain today, and one of them explains it's because of an approaching cyclone. A man running to the right announces he's late. The man on the bottom left looks at them silently. The man reports that they've completed the inspection. Tsukina asks if something happened to Yuta-san as he went hunting for monsters yesterday. The man explains that the mission was completed successfully, but Yuta-san had a slight conflict of opinion. They were told about their policy, but he seemed to. The man says he's had enough of resting and orders him to go on patrol, and the boy agrees. The man says goodbye to Tsukina, and she replies that she'll see him again. 2 men report that one of them has a bad feeling. Tsukina says he wonders what it was. The man stands against the wall, silent. The wind rustles. In the image, the man states that he is not going to give up and intends to continue the fight despite the difficulties. The man reports that it is clear. An awkward atmosphere erupts between Yuta-san and the knights. Tsukina says she hopes it's just a minor disagreement, drinking from her mug. She says the sequel to this book is coming out next month, and she can't wait. Although the sign outside says it's a book cafe, Tsukina explains that because of this, she hasn't had the opportunity to show customers the magic she learned, and she even uses an enchanted teapot for herself. Since Tsukina and Il began living together, only Bjork. She reports that she hasn't heard the sound that informs her of customers since she changed to Il's arrival home, and asks if she can still call it a book cafe. The bell rings, and a man announces that it's a customer. Tsukina hears the music and says, "Ha." The man says hello and asks if the cafe is open. Tsukina notices the man's silky silver hair and clear white skin, noting that it's a different type of beauty than Ila's. The man says hello, and she says it reminds her of the day she first met Illa. The man asks if he can read any of the books there. She tells him the books are enchanted to prevent them from getting dirty so he can read them while eating. The man replies that it's clear. The woman says that the man has quite an extensive collection of books. The man thanks her. The woman says it's a menu and an alarm that can be used. Tsukina explains that it only sounds in the head of the person setting it. The man says, "Oh." She says the appearance and voice are neutral and asks if it is a man or a woman. Tsukina says the weather is much colder than usual today. The man says it's quite chilly outside and explains that there will be hot soup and a bread set. She asks what the interlocutor will drink and says that the teapot is enchanted, so it will always be hot. The guy says he'll have the black tea recommended on the menu. Tsukina thanks him and asks him to feel free to read any books in the cafe while he waits. She says there's nothing in this world that can't be understood if you put in the effort, and explains that she always tries to understand everything completely. The man says this sounds like an ideal worth striving for, and explains that sometimes he himself forgets this. The waitress announces that she's bringing the order. Tsukina thanks them and says they have quite a few rare books. Tsukina explains that she was specifically interested in this particular book. The waitress says she's glad to hear it and invites them to enjoy the book as long as they like. She says the prices were unusual, today has taught her a lot, and she probably won't be able to find time for another visit anytime soon, but if she does have the opportunity, she'd like to come back. The man asks if she's leaving already and offers to give her a bookmark to write her name on so she can remember. In the top right panel, a hooded man stands in front of a house, and Tsukina says she hopes he'll be back. In the bottom right panel, a clock shows the time and an exclamation is heard. In the bottom left panel, Tsukina says he'll be back soon, so they should start making dinner, and she reports that winter has started early this year and will be cold. She explains that snow has already fallen and warns that people need to prepare for the cold. Tsukina says that these are the new books she received today. The man says, "Oh." She says she wanted to ask. The man says they all look interesting. Tsukina reports that something happened to Yuta-san while hunting monsters. The man asks if she saw anything strange. The man reports that he and the knights were acting strangely, so the man explains that the hunt itself was successful with his help, but the man remains silent. The man reports that they've met their monster quota. The guy says it's finally time to go home. The guy says there are still monsters there. The man replies, "Ah." The man says they've already killed the required number, so they don't need to go after them. He explains that if they hunt them too much, they'll become active and start attacking people. The guy responds with a "ha." The man explains that this is another country's territory, so they can't enter without permission. The two men explain that the number of monsters they can hunt and the locations are agreed upon by several countries. The man reports that by the time he received the news and arrived, the monster and the knights were already arguing. The man says that if this monster were to kill someone in front of another, Tsukina asks if everything will be okay. The man replies that everyone has been through something similar. The man explains that the knights he argued with are still young, and probably because they themselves don't fully accept it all, they couldn't fully convince him, which is what led to the argument. She says that the man once felt something similar. The man explains that something like this. The man says that although Yuta's participation was very helpful, he, as the commander of the knights, plans to talk to him. The guy says he'd do it himself, but right now the biggest priority is the monster that's infiltrated the castle. Tsukina hopes they can finally reconcile. The guy asks if she found out anything about him. She says that she will tell him. Tsukina reports that they believe the person who brought the monster inside the barrier is someone from the country of Hagar, which separates them by an ocean. She explains that it must be the country to which God says he deliberately does not send saviors. The young man reports that shortly before Tsukina's arrival, they received a request to form an alliance under several unfavorable conditions, an offer they wanted to avoid, but Hagar is a large country with a strong army, and there was a possibility that if they refused, it would become a pretext for attack. The man explains. Tsukina says that if they investigate the barrier or the savior, they might be able to uncover her identity as the savior. The man explains that no, they'll likely be focusing on Yuta, who is known as the savior. The man explains that this will make it difficult for Hagar to attack them, which is why they were able to abandon the alliance. She reports that they were probably tracking the previous savior as well, but from what she heard, it doesn't seem like they could use her even if they wanted to. The girl expresses hatred of magic. The man asks if something's wrong. Tsukina says that if anything changes, he should let her know, adding that he should still be on guard. She says that nothing special happened, but a client came in today. The man asks what he looked like. Tsukina explains that it was a beautiful person with fair skin and silver hair, but the appearance and voice were very neutral, so she could not tell whether it was a man or a woman. She explains that Hagar is hot all year round, unlike here, and most of their people have darker skin. The man asks if that means they're not to blame. The man explains that in this country, such a skin color would stand out, so there's a chance it was changed with magic. Tsukina says yes, thank you. The man says doubting her won't get her anywhere, but if she feels threatened, she should use magic and come to the castle. She says that in any case, she thought that everything would finally be calm. The man reports that, without a doubt, it is more peaceful now, and with the barrier, protective amulets, and potions they now have, the situation is better. The man says that even though Tsukina doesn't reveal herself as the savior, she still does her job. The girl says thank you and explains that when she talks to Il, all her worries disappear. Tsukina says that's not the point now. A man asks Tsukina if she wants to go somewhere on his next vacation. She responds with a question. The guy says that even if he has work to do, he can still take his days off as usual and suggests that they go somewhere together sometime. The girl replies that it's just. The guy says that he wants Tsukina to pay attention to him too, and not just to Yoda. The image shows a fortress wall with a tower and a coat of arms featuring 2 crossed swords and dragons, while 2 birds fly in the sky. There are no spoken lines or characters on stage. A woman greets a man. The man looks at the woman silently. The woman thanks the man, who replies that it's nonsense. The man greets the girl who offers to help carry the box, who thanks him. Tsukina greets the man. She says it looks like he's pretending everything's okay and confirms it with a yes. The guy says he's going to the knight's headquarters. The guy says he doesn't know, and Tsukina asks if he knows about the savior who erected this barrier. She says that everyone is looking for him, and the man reports that he heard people in the castle talking about him. The boy reports that they said they wanted to know more about the savior who erected this barrier than to have a new one. The girl listens. The hero explains that there isn't a single textbook in this country that deciphers great magic, and even if there were, he doesn't know if he could use it right now. He then asks if he's really helping anyone. Tsukina explains that it's understandable why he's so depressed. The man says, well, Tsukina says it's not half her fault. She reports that the knight said that he was very helpful in hunting monsters, and explains that even if it is a little, he is helping someone, and if he continues to work hard, then one day there will be no problem learning great magic. Tsukina says he finds it amazing that despite coming from another world, he participates in dangerous monster hunts for the people of this country. The guy says to Tsukina, addressing her by name. Tsukina says that the first person whose life he saved is standing right in front of him, and it's precisely because he saved her then that she's still alive and wouldn't have been able to attack the monster in time. She adds that she sincerely thanks him for saving her back then. The man replies that he'll start small and try to do so. The boy reports that, although he's still hesitant to attack a monster the size of a small animal, Yuta-san is determined and has been working hard since arriving in this world. She says she praised him to encourage him, but it's true that he's amazing. The guy says that while he is glad that he is parked up, Tsukina says this with relief. She tells him that a king who rules the country lives in the castle, and that the castle was built to protect against enemies. The man explains that the castle is surrounded by a high wall with towers and gates through which one can enter. Tsukina says that since that day, he waits at the gate every day when she makes deliveries. Tsukina is surprised. The man waves his hand. She asks if the guy really has time for this, and if he shouldn't have magic lessons or something, to which the guy replies that he's on a break right now. She says that's good, the guy agrees, and thanks Tsukina for allowing him to open up to the knights a little more then. The guy says he wouldn't like to go for a walk with Tsukina next weekend. It's been a month since she declined Yotsuta-san's invitation, and since then he's tried to invite her again several times, all the while apologizing. A man asks if he can take him away from a girl to talk about things. The guy says listen, and the other guy says that lately, because of this, he has begun to distance himself from the knightly order. Tsukina says that maybe the guys from the order are just looking out for Yuta. She explains that every time Yuta is rejected, he immediately goes to help others, so she can't even give a reason for her answer. The girl apologizes, and the guy says goodbye and says he'll come again. She says that the next time he invites her, even if she is too embarrassed, she should say that she has someone she loves. Sukina says that ultimately she wouldn't want anything hidden from her either. She explains that she still needs to tell Il, but puts off that conversation until tomorrow because she needs to prepare dinner. Sukina says that Bjork-san will come today, the sound of biting meat. The guy says the food is always so delicious. Sukina says she's made a lot of food and asks them to feel free to ask for more. The blonde guy says thank you. The dark-haired man eats silently. The guy reports that the senior knights said that she became friends with Yuta, and she explains that, by the way, the guy gets along well with the new savior and the guys from the order. Sukina says he's a bit clumsy, but he often comes to say hello and chat with her, and the girl responds with agreement. The guy asks Sukina if something happened. She explains that she wanted to tell Il about it later, but now she's talking about it. The guy says that a month ago, Yuta asked him if he wanted to go for a walk with him, and the guy eats and says, yeah. The man listens silently. Sukina reports that after that, he waited near the gate every delivery day. The man makes a sound of displeasure. She says that she always refuses him, but he continues to insist on his own, while the word kill is repeated many times. The man tells her not to make such a scary face. The man explains that she's turning him down and decided to tell Tsukina. Tsukina asks, doesn't that mean she's absolutely not interested in him? She says she finds it incredible that he's working as a savior and supports him. She explains that she didn't tell him anything directly, and perhaps he simply misunderstood her. The man says he's not sure if it can be called love, but he definitely likes her. The man explains that his subordinates don't talk about it left and right, but there's a certain atmosphere in the air, and people are making a big fuss about it. He says that someone is probably hitting on her because they don't know she's engaged to the captain, the man remarks. The blonde man says he's sure it will be difficult to ask about it, so he'll talk to the order members himself. Sukina explains she doesn't want to cause them any trouble. The blonde man says he's most looking forward to their wedding, and so there won't be any problems. She asks for help in this situation and is counting on them. The blonde guy tells the other guy to stop being so gloomy and to eat something, and the other guy replies that he's fine. The man says, good morning. Sukina says good morning and asks if Björk-san has left. The man says he has, though he continued drinking all night after Sukina fell asleep. She says that he only goes to work during the day and could sleep a little longer. The man says that he is already awake. The guy tells Tsukina he wants to talk to her and asks if anyone has ever told her anything directly. Tsukina says she has no experience with such matters and that perhaps it would be easier for her to refuse if he admitted it directly. She says she loves no one but him. The man explains that he understands. The man silently looks forward. Tsukina says that if she hadn't met the man she was talking to, she would never have known what love is. Then Tsukina and the man drink from cups. She says that love, like reading, requires a lot of time. The man explains that spending time with the one he loves is like reading a book and shares that he feels the same way. The guy says he thinks he's changed a lot. Tsukina replies that she's changed too. She says that when she first came here, she couldn't imagine that things would change so much. Tsukina reports that she was forever sitting in her ideal cafe, absorbed in reading. She explains that since they confessed, she's come to value the time spent with Il much more. Tsukina explains that thanks to him, she began to love this country much more, began to create objects, and delivered. A man and a woman are holding mugs. The man looks at Tsukina and she smiles. The text says that love really does change people. The guy says hi. Tsukina replies that she's saying hello. The guy says he's finally there. She says she can't find a moment to talk to him. The man explains they're almost there. The boy asks Tsukina for help, apologizing and saying it's urgent, and Tsukina replies, sure, just wait a bit. The man turns to Yuta, asking her to help them. The guy asks to leave the items. He'll sort them out. Another guy apologizes. A third suggests they hurry up. The girl says she'll never talk to him again. She'll try again another time, and now she'll hurry away. The man says the work was good. Two men come down the stairs. One of them says it's good. The guy greets Tsukina and says that he brought her husband, who is tired from work, to her, and Tsukina says hey. The guy says he really couldn't get it together and apologizes for barging into the nest. The man thanks him for what happened recently. The man asks Il if he's really tired and says there was a lot of paperwork. The man advises him to take care of his husband. Tsukina says he'll try to sort things out in his room. The man explains he's embarrassed they'll be spending less time together because they're working from home and pats Tsukina on the head. Tsukina smiles and says that's how it is. The man explains he rarely sees Tsukina when he delivers items. She mentions that she heard about a used book fair next weekend and reminds him that he mentioned going somewhere during those days. He says that sounds great and suggests they go, hoping to find something interesting. The guy asks if something happened, to which the man replies no. Tsukina smiles. The guy looks ahead. The man says he'll see Tsukina soon. The man waves goodbye. The man apologizes for interrupting, and the boy says it's okay and everyone is really looking forward to the wedding. Tsukina explains that she feels very uneasy when she thinks about members of the royal family attending. The boy informs her that both the king and the captain are also excited about the wedding, and she explains that they seemed very excited. She says that's the next order. The girl thanks him and says that she feels awkward talking to anyone about the wedding. Tsukina says it's definitely Yuta's son, and she feels guilty keeping her distance, but now he should stop inviting her out, whether he's in love or not. Tsukina hopes he's realized their connection with Il and believes he must have overheard their conversation. A guy announces that there is a thief at school who is stealing things from students and explains that he's going to catch him. A man reports the sound of his hand clenching on a windowsill. The boy says that he happily agreed to come into this world when he learned that his childhood dream of becoming a hero would come true. The guy says that God gave him a power superior to all other saviors, and he thought that nothing was impossible for him in this world, however. Tsukina reports that the soldiers, who are unable to defeat the beasts approaching the capitals, are being attacked. She explains that the sudden cataclysm was caused by another savior. First, a man is shown writing with a pen on paper. Then the man and she stand facing each other. The man says that finally, she smiles. The man says that her smile saved him. The man says that there is only one person in this city who can help, and he is going to contact him. The guy says he needs more strength. The guy says that if only he could use great magic. Tsukina says it's beautiful, and the man says he heard today's market will be big, but this is simply amazing. Tsukina explains that she magically enlarged her bag to fit more things and asks if that will be enough. She suggests they first browse all the stalls and then look at the stores from a different angle on the way back. The man agrees and says that if something catches their interest and others don't grab it first, they'll buy it themselves. The man says he's already bought the magic textbook the girl wanted to read. Tsukina tells Il that there's a book there he might like. She says they are happy. The man silently holds a stack of books. Tsukina says fine, and they'll probably spend the whole time reading when they get back. The man suggests they eat and go home. She says they still have plenty of time. The man tells the woman that he has brought some books for her. The boy informs them that there are books in the library that are not allowed to be taken home and asks them to follow the rules. Tsukina explains that special permission is required to use these books. The girl informs them that breaking the rules could result in their access to the library being revoked. She says that she is. The guy is silent. The man says, I am. The guy says that he will definitely become a good savior. He will study more, learn even more magic, and become stronger. Tsukina speaks to Yuta-san, asking if something happened. The man says that no matter how hard he tries to be a good savior, everyone is only interested in the one who created this barrier because he is still weak. Tsukina tells Yuta Dono that he's just arrived in this world but doesn't think he's weak. She also says that everyone really appreciates how hard he tries, and the teachers who teach him magic praised him for being so quick on the uptake. Yuta explains that he's quickly losing in fights. She explains that in the world the interlocutor came from, battles were rare, while in this country, people prepare themselves for battles with monsters from childhood. She says the interlocutor's height is simply incredible. The man says that Tsukina will become stronger in no time and take their place. The guy says he can't understand why she isn't answering. The boy tells her that he also thinks Tsukina is incredible. Tsukina explains that the boy works hard for people living in a different world from his own, and that he saved her from monsters she'd never seen before. She's sure he was scared too, but even in that situation, his first concern was for her. She says that he's trying so hard to become stronger for the sake of this country, and there's not a single person who would consider him weak. The guy is silent and then says that it doesn't matter. The guy says that when he came to this world, he received a power that no one had before, and now he is stronger than anyone else, so he will definitely become stronger than the one who imposed this barrier. The man says he will never lose. The guy asks to wait, the girl says, illusion, and the guy suggests Tsukina go into the alley. Tsukina asks if she can cast a soundproof barrier, and the guy agrees. They enter the alley, and the guy casts the barrier. The man says it's him. The man greets the captain and asks him to send someone to keep an eye on Yota so he doesn't notice. The captain confirms and asks what happened. The man explains that Yota shouted out in the middle of the city that he was stronger than any savior, and there's a high probability that spies from Tsukina explains that if they speak to him or Bjork, it will have the opposite effect and will spread it to the other knights. She confirms this with the word so precisely. She says she needs to contact a few more people and apologizes for the wait, then says that as soon as she's done, they'll go eat as planned. The girl asks if he's really that worried about it. A man says he doesn't think anything bad will happen right now, but it's better to take precautions in advance to avoid worrying later. Another man says he's sure it will lead to dire consequences later, so it wouldn't hurt to be on the safe side. Sakina says there are a lot of shops and cafes in the area, and it's always crowded. Sakina says it's understandable. Hope that nothing will happen. It is reported that Yotsuma seemed to be completely immersed in his studies from that day onwards. Due to the garden teas with Hagor's agents, security was increased at the castle, and access to the castle was strictly restricted, so Tsukina couldn't meet with Auta. Il delivers items made by Tsukina. Bjork-san and the others often stop by to visit Tsukina. She says the captain is lucky to be able to eat such food every day. In the top left, a man and a guy say they're surprised it's so cheap and ask if she'll go broke. Tsukina explains that if she said it was just for fun, they'd refuse, so let them pay a little, and says it's all fine. In the top right, a girl thanks them for the welcome. The guy reports that the captain is in the mess hall. She says she hasn't heard anything interesting, and the girl explains that it's frightening. The man asks if anyone has said anything strange to them. The man reports that today, Yuta asked how Tsukina was doing, and he said everything was fine. Tsukina says that this is how it is. She says she thought he'd lose interest in her if they didn't see each other. But it seems others don't make the same impression on him as the one he saved first, the one who set up that barrier. She explains that Yuta-san never mentioned another savior and simply didn't want to talk about it. The man says the guy is not bad, but he won't give Tsukina to him. Tsukina sits silently at the table with a cup. She says she would never let go of his hand even if he said he would give in. The man explains that it's like this, and Tsukina says that it's exactly like this. Tsukina smiles, the man nods. She notices that he is embarrassed, and he coughs. The man says there's a party coming up soon that will take place at night, and suggests they go together, as he's free that very day. Tsukina agrees to go, but clarifies that it will be a night party. She says the streets won't be as crowded because, yes, when it gets completely dark. The guy says it's a very unusual holiday. The man sits across from him. Tsukina says they'll only need one flower and that she'll prepare it in advance. Tsukina says one flower sounds very sweet and that she's looking forward to it. The man silently makes a peace sign. She says the last night's celebration was crazy, but the Aurora celebration was very fun. The man suggests going again. The man says he wouldn't mind hearing the confession again and needs to remember it well. Tsukina remains silent. She asks if he's playing with her. He replies that he's only playing now, but otherwise he's always serious. The man says they'll get back to reading and notes that Tsukina often says that. Tsukina explains that she feels awkward and makes the ooh sound. She explains that there are people in this world who can see spirits, and that she herself is one of them. She explains that spirits can be both good and evil, and that it's important to be able to distinguish between them. The guy says he wasn't at that fair either. The other guy apologizes to Yuta and says he's been studying too much lately. Yuta replies that he won't lose. If Tsukina could only find a spell with great magic, she would learn it right away. A guy hears a knock on the door and asks what it is. He tells him to come in. Then the door opens. The man knocks on the window. The woman says she has an important request for the man. A man asks to save their world with the help of this great magic. Tsukina says there's nothing better than reading a book after dinner. The man tells her she's right. The man offers Tsukina something from his hand. The guy says the flower is very beautiful and asks if it's the same flower the other guy was talking about. The man confirms. Tsukina says he also gave her flowers back then. The man says that was the day he learned she was a savior. She says she was very surprised when she opened her eyes and thought that next time he would come for her as a guard from the castle. The man replies that he knows about it. The text on the vase states that magic was cast on the flowers, causing them to never wilt and that they still decorate the room. The guy suggests going out and enjoying the night since tomorrow is a day off. Tsukina agrees. She says this is the first time she's used teleportation magic and asks if it worked. The man says it worked and adds that she's amazing as always. On the bridge, a man says it's so beautiful. Tsukina smiles and says she really likes it. The man asks if she likes it. The guy reports that he's stretched. Tsukina says she understands it's cold, but she's so sad they can't hold hands directly. The man suggests going upstream, explaining that they, too, need to release their flowers. She explains that this flower is a symbol of their country. The man explains that they charge the flowers with magic and send the glowing flowers downstream, wishing peace for their country. Tsukina reports that thanks to the magic in the river, the flowers that float downstream will rise back up, and once they reach the top, they will begin to resonate with the magic surrounding them and dissolve into thin air. She says that the magic of each of them will penetrate the earth and connect with the magic in the earth, transmitting their desires. Tsukina says that people's desires, I wonder if her barrier will help this dream come true. A man says, "It's very beautiful here." A man and a woman stand next to each other. Sukina says, "Let's infuse these flowers with our magic," and the man agrees. Sukina notices that her flower has turned blue and his has turned purple, and asks if this depends on the individual's magic or the flowers. The man explains that their color will always be the same and it has nothing to do with it. She says these flowers will carry with them the wishes of every person in this country. The left panel shows someone placing a flower on water. Sukina says this country is a place she would like to live forever. Glowing lotuses float on the water. The girl says she wants to talk. The man answers with a question. The guy says, "That's how it is." Sukina says that she's very glad to have come to this world. At first she thinks that she will live a very ordinary, quiet life, but then she says that she was forcibly pulled into this world, so she thought that she would not be able to help people from here. Sukina says that she loves Illa very much, and the country that is so dear to him, and Illa explains that after meeting her, he gradually began to love this country. She says that she doesn't regret using great magic, and adds something else. The man says that the guys are from the order, the people from the castle, and the inhabitants of this country. Sukina explains that she values them not because they are dear to the man, but because she values them herself. She says she's afraid to admit she's a savior, and she thinks that will never change. The man says that, if possible, he would always like to remain an ordinary Tsukina, and wants to find something he can do to help this country. Sukina says she loves this country and her interlocutor. The man says he'll help as many times as needed and thanks her. Sukina explains what she loves. The man asks what exactly. The guy says the same. He holds the girl's head and hugs her. The sounds of knocking on the roof can be heard against the backdrop of a sunny day. In the right panel, a man pours coffee into a cup. In the left panel, Tsukina announces that she is serving coffee to a man, and the man thanks her and says the weather is nice today, suggesting they go for a walk. She says that a man from the Order of Knights should come soon for the manufactured items. Bjork tells Tsukina he's come to pick up the items and apologizes for bothering him on his day off. He explains that the items have often been helpful, so they should at least handle the delivery. Tsukina apologizes for taking up their time and says there aren't many items available today. The guy asks Tsukina if she has a day off and is planning to go somewhere. She replies that yes, they wanted to take a little walk around the area. Then she smiles and tries to do something. The guy looks at her. Tsukina offers to walk Bjork home and return on horseback. The man apologizes for interrupting their walk. The boy says it's understandable, since they spend all their time at home with their books, and calls them a married couple. The girl asks for more. The man calls the boy a grump. Down. She says she's not sure she has the courage to actively make friends. Then she reacts sharply to something. A man walks next to Tsukina, holding a spear. Tsukina says the barrier is reacting to something. In the next panel, the dragons let out a loud roar. The dragon flaps its wings and takes off, making a loud sound. The beast roars and emits electricity. The boy and the man say they're ready, and the girl looks at them. Tsukina says they're monsters. The guy says the monsters are raiding and there are too many of them here. The man says he doesn't know if the barrier can withstand that many monsters and orders them to go to the castle and gather the knights, while the boy orders the evacuation of civilians. The man tells Tsukina that they need to hurry and hold on tight, and she says that's fine. The man explains. Tsukina says, "Ouch." The sound of a horse's hooves can be heard as it moves. Tsukina and the man on horseback ride up to the standing man. The boy says he'll deal with most of the monsters with his new magic. She says to Yuta, "Son." Yuta makes an ah sound. The boy clutches a book with a pentagram on the cover. Tsukina reports that there shouldn't be any tomes of great magic in this country. The man says that a woman he once saved recently came to him. The man says she gave him this book and asked him to save the world. Tsukina reports that this book really does look like a tome of great magic. The guy asks about the second book. The boy explains that it's auxiliary magic that will help him cast a spell without affecting the barrier. The man with long hair and she say such magic exists. A boy asks to be shown something, turning to Tsukina, who is standing next to another man, and says there's no need to be afraid, everything will be fine. The man says that this time he won't give up, and the boy confirms this with the word, definitely. The guy says he's going to save the world. The man notes that the color is terrible, but adds that. Tsukina reports that, compared to her magic, this spell is capable of concentrating a huge amount of magic in one spot. The cloaked man says he's amazed at such a volume of mana. The guy asks if it's safe to use this magic within the city walls, and she says she doesn't know, but if the spell is interrupted carelessly, an explosion could occur. The boy reports that Yuta-san said he received more power from the god than anyone else, and explains that it's a spell that will pass through the barrier. Tsukina asks why her barrier is shaking so much. The man addresses Tsukina, saying that his head feels like it's about to explode. The guy says that he will collapse and raises his hand. Tsukina says it's impossible. The guy with the book is surprised. The guy raises his hand to a complex magic circle, and Tsukina stands nearby and looks at him. The guy says it's a barrier. The guy says no and asks why. Dragons are flying in the background. Books with pentagrams are lying on the table. In the foreground, a girl is kneeling with two men standing behind her. The boy reports that there are still many monsters in the sky even after the great magic, and that the population needs to be evacuated immediately, which the man confirms. The boy raises his hand and says he'll think of something. The man tries to use magic, but only produces sound. Tsukina explains that it's because of the use of great magic. She reports that they have already made their way into the city. The man tells Tsukina not to leave him, and Tsukina agrees. Tsukina explains that she gets very scared every time she sees monsters, and her legs shake violently. The guy says he's not going to give up, the girl sighs. Then the guy takes a step. The guy asks Tsukina, and she says that she apologizes and admits that he tried so hard to keep her secret. Tsukina says she can ask for help if she suddenly loses consciousness. The guy says he listens to whatever you say. Tsukina says she's afraid to fight. A man stands behind her and places his hand on her shoulder. In the left panel, two men and a girl are fighting or preparing to fight. A man tells Tsukina he's afraid others will find out she's a savior. A guy on the street approaches Tsukina, and a man in a suit and tie calls her by name and asks if she's a savior. The guy says it's a seal. Tsukina says that to protect the people she loves, she says she must use great magic. The guy announces that the monsters won't be able to enter the city now and speaks of the need to quickly deal with those trapped inside. The girl screams, "Barrier." The monsters make a gee sound. The man explains that this place is a city where people live and explains that everything necessary for life can be found here. The young man explains that they must be careful and not attract unnecessary attention. The man says that if they follow the rules, they will be able to pass through the city safely. The guy says he destroyed all the monsters around. The boy says he'll take Yuta Dono to the castle and take care of Tsukina. Tsukina thanks him. The girl reveals her name is Tsukina Mizumori and admits she's glad the boy didn't ask her last name when they first met. The boy asks what she's talking about. The girl says that she came from the same world and the same country as the man, and that she was sent here as a savior. The man stands in front of them. The guy says the girl's last name is indeed known, but Tsukina explains that she initially had no intention of protecting this country and that she erected a barrier over it, apologizing for not speaking about it earlier. She says she began to love the people from here and decided to protect this country. She explains that after meeting Illa, Tsukina asks, "What about the boy?" The boy replies that he wanted to save this world. Tsukina explains that saving the world is quite difficult, even with great magic. She explains that there are countries that want to get their hands on them, and even if he helps one country, another might suffer. The guy says that his job then is to save this world. Tsukina says that as a savior, she understands that if he tries to save everyone, he will destroy himself, so he needs to decide what is important to his heart. She says it's strange to hear this from him, who is still indifferent to the people around him. The man explains that the heart is important. Tsukina breathes heavily and sighs. The man says that the others will take care of business, and she should get some rest. Dord tells the name. She says thank you. Tsukina says, "UW." The guy says the girl has woken up. She says she won't feel the effects of magical exhaustion here and offers her a cup. Tsukina says that, frankly, she'd rather have a drink with Ill. She explains that frequent visits to the cafe have given her a taste for other people's drinks. The man calls her a pest. Tsukina sighs and says she's using her as she pleases. The man confirms that she helped him out. She explains that it's some kind of great magic, which was instantly broken by Yauda-san's spell. The man says there's nothing to be done. After all, the barrier only possessed tiny bits of Tsukina's power. Tsukina says she doesn't understand what's going on. The boy reports that the barrier has lost a lot of its strength after the rampage of its previous savior and asks if she noticed. She explains that it's obvious that monsters would never break through a high-level barrier, no matter how hard they tried, and the boy agrees. The man explains that the girl's barrier will be much stronger this time, as he hasn't received any damage, and adds that the girl doesn't often use high-level magic, but the more she uses it, the stronger she will become. Tsukina asks, besides, the man explains that, in terms of the previous world, the girl will gain a huge amount of experience points and, without even noticing, level up. She says that's exactly it and laughs. The man explains that the girl's barrier and restorative magic are on a completely different level, even compared to other saviors, to which several people react dubiously. The man adds that her offensive magic will be even stronger than the girl's. The girl remains silent. Tsukina says that, of course, she is happy to become stronger, but at the same time she has attracted a lot of attention, and says that probably everyone already knows that she is a savior. The man says he called his interlocutor to thank him properly. The interlocutor asks how to thank him. The man says the girl has already saved him twice by stopping cataclysms, so he decided to trick her a little. He explains that he'll make it so people can't simply spread rumors about her being a savior, even if they find out. Tsukina says this is quite useful. She says the man took the previous savior with him, but asks, what about Yuta? The man says that this time he thought a lot about Yuta's actions and decided not to take him. The man says he just needs to be kept an eye on, and Tsukina says he's right. The guy says the girl's about to wake up. The girl explains that she often visits the saviors, so they're sure to meet someday. The man says, see you soon. The man reports that the moment. The man says that if Tsukina doesn't want it, he won't insist, but if she does, he's always there. Tsukina says she doesn't want him to worry about her. She says that, or... The man smiles. The man holds Tsukina's hand. She sits on the bed, leaning on him. On the top right, Tsukina reports that after she fell asleep, Yoshita's-san also passed out from exhaustion. On the bottom right, a man explains that due to hunting monsters and repairing the damage to the city, Il and Bjork-san are mired in work. On the right, the man explains that some believe Izumi-san's magical fragments allow an outsider to control his magic. On the left, the man explains that there's no direct evidence of this, so the investigation is in full swing. The guy says that these are letters from knights, servants, and residents of the city addressing the interlocutor as Your Highness. The man reports that they believe Yuta-san is not involved in this, but deep down, he understands that Yuta-san is different from them and that he was very kind to them from the very beginning and that many were saved only thanks to his kindness and radiant smile. The man asks for Your Highness. Tsukina says that's wonderful. The man explains that he can't meet Tsukina because he needs to pack for a trip. Tsukina says he asked her to give her something. The text explains that as a result, Yuta was found not guilty, and in order to learn more about this, the man apologizes to Tsukina for the trouble he caused, and says he's decided to reflect a little on this world and what it means to be a savior. He shares that he heard how the damage from the monster raid was minimized thanks to a barrier and recovery potions. The hero says that he wants to find something that he can do to help this world with his own efforts, and for the sake of all those people who gave him another chance. The boy says that's all. Tsukina says that it's only because of Yotu-san's thoughts that he can be considered a far more successful savior than her. The text explains that a few days later, having restored her magical energy, she returned to her daily routine. She explains that for some reason, neither Yoma-san nor Bjork-san told anyone about her, and wonders if it's due to their immeasurable kindness or God's blessing. The guy says he's come for the items again. The guy asks where Il. Tsukina says he went out shopping. The guy explains they missed each other somewhere. The girl says she wanted to ask if they could keep it a secret that this is her barrier. The guy silently pouts. She's surprised and says, oh. The man explains that he couldn't even imagine there was another savior living nearby and asks for forgiveness. She, too, remains silent. The guy says that this time he won't tell anyone, but if their country is threatened again, he will have to tell His Majesty everything. Tsukina thanks him and says she thought she'd be told this time. The man explains that to prevent anything bad from happening, they need to work together. Tsukina and the man agree to work together. The man explains to Tsukina that even if His Highness knew about her special abilities, he would hardly send her to war because having abilities doesn't make her a good warrior. She asks why. The girl says it would be much easier to send knights to war, even if they have. The man says he won't tell anyone this time, but he might annoy Il a little by not even telling his childhood friend. Tsukina asks what he means. The man explains that after Yutadano asked him to tell her what he said, he leaned over. The man says that when she asked him what he wanted to protect, the first thing that came to his mind was her smile. The guy says that he knew he would most likely be rejected, but he still didn't give up and decided to start studying even more so as not to cause her even more trouble. The man says he won't lose to them. The guy explains that their country has a polygamous marriage system. The man says that normal people get angry when they're rejected, and the guy confirms this. Tsukina says she's not interested in anyone but Il, calling it seriousness. The guy explains he was just joking, but it's too serious a topic for Tsukina. She reports that Il replied that no matter what happened and whoever stood before him, he would not give her away just like that. The man says that Tsukina doesn't need anyone but him, and he himself doesn't need anyone but her. Tsukina reports that he said this in front of everyone. The girl with torn hair explains that Tsukina seems even happy about it, so it was worth it. The man says he's home and says he just told Tsukina-chan about her secret. She asks what he's saying. The man explains it was a good secret, yes, she-chan. She says she's glad she was able to hear it. Tsukina says, hey. The man laughs and says it's revenge for someone not telling him about the savior. The girl remains silent. She says that a lot has happened. The man says that's enough and asks what the other man is doing to the girl, and the man asks her to stop and let him go. Tsukina says she's glad to be able to continue her peaceful life, hiding the fact that she's a savior. The bottom panel depicts the castle gates with people and carts standing outside. The man on the right says it happened just before the attack. The man on the left says the barrier broke once but repaired itself almost immediately. Tsukina reports that the savior who cast this barrier is protecting them from the shadows. Several months have passed since the monster attack incident. Life in Osel has returned to normal, and Yuta-san, the cause of all the unrest, has become accustomed to life in a foreign country. His academic success is so incredible that rumors of it reach Osel itself. The man reports that it seems why. The doorbell rings. Tsukina says that she welcomes the guests and informs that she still works in the cafe, hiding from everyone that she is a lifeguard. The guy says hello. The girl responds, greeting Blanc. Tsukina says she's really enjoyed baking bread lately, and the man notices the pleasant aroma as he offers her a bun. Tsukina adds that Blanc has been coming to her cafe frequently lately. He's one of the few regular customers not affiliated with the Knights. She explains that they quickly hit it off, and she reports that she spent her days without knowing sadness. The girl asks what she thinks. She explains that she's not sure what gender he is, but decided not to worry about it since they were able to get along so well. The man says he and Il have begun planning their wedding. The woman explains that for centuries, heads of knightly orders, prime ministers, and members of the royal family have celebrated their weddings here. Tsukina says she's only nervous now. The man asks, why only now? Tsukina explains that she was just as nervous when they were invited to His Majesty's wedding. The man says she handled herself well. The man explains that they're choosing a dress today and suggests they put their worries aside to find something they like. The girl says he's right and thanks him. The man presses his hand to the wall. The guy says he can't wait to see the girl's outfit. The girl explains that, as the head of the order, she must wear formal attire, so she doesn't have much to prepare. The girl explains that it's a special occasion, so she'll be looking forward to it. The boy says the dress is special to Tsukina and asks if she's sure, since he's an ordinary knight and quite far from being a beautiful person. Tsukina explains that she definitely wants him to choose the dress for her, adding that she's not very knowledgeable about local customs, so his help is needed. She says she would be happy to choose the dress herself. Tsukina says she also wants to wear the dress that he would choose for her. She says it's fine and asks him to leave it for her. The man looks away silently. The woman announces that there are dresses on display in this room for her to try on and offers to choose any. Tsukina says she likes this dress, and the man explains that it is truly beautiful. The man explains that the dress is made in the latest fashion, and Tsukina thanks him. The woman smiles, watching. The man says the corset is too tight, then says, oh, and ouch. She looks out from behind the curtain. The guy asks if it suits him. The girl replies that he looks great. The guy says it's so dark outside. Tsukina says that at least they picked out a nice dress for her. The guy says he doesn't want the girl to go alone and suggests they go together. The girl explains she's not afraid and can walk alone, but the guy insists he wants to walk beside her. Tsukina says she wants to still walk with Il, holding hands when they become husband and wife. Tsukina explains this to Il, who smiles and looks at her. There is no text or dialogue in the background of the house and trees. The guy says the food is ready. Tsukina reports hearing a knock. Tsukina says she's enjoying the meal. She says he has a good appetite. The guy says he hasn't eaten this well in a long time since he came here on business and that the cheap prices really helped him out, and also notes that it was very tasty. Tsukina notes that there was a lot of food and it fit everywhere. The guy says he brought a new product with him. She says she wants to see it. Tsukina says she feels awkward because she likes everything the man brings. The man says she can buy whatever she wants. The man explains that if you buy the set, he'll give you a small, friendly discount. She says it's incredibly cheap and wants to buy everything. The man says he can show you the cups, of course. Tsukina says that she can, of course, get things using the pendant received from God, but it is still much more pleasant to buy things this way. She says she bought this too. The man asks, what do you say? She explains that she bought a couple of things for personal use, but since she's on budget, she thinks it's okay. The doorbell rings, and the man says welcome. A guy with long blonde hair and a guy with long dark hair say they were patrolling nearby and decided to stop by Tsukina's for a bite to eat. The man says he apologizes and hopes he didn't disturb anyone. The woman reports that they just finished, so everything is fine. A man says he is indeed very handsome, despite his gender being unknown. A man says what he thinks. A man explains what he thinks. A man says what he thinks. Tsukina announces that she's home but will have to leave immediately after lunch. The man says, "Welcome back." The three men discuss the captain's sudden change of mood. One expresses his desire for such a beautiful wife, while the other wonders if they, too, will be able to flirt if they have wives. The man. The guy says the captain can hear everything, and she asks him to keep it down. The man says the vice captain is the loudest here. Tsukina says she's coughing. The four men laugh. She says she wants to get a book too. The man says he was just about to get a book. The man explains that he'll probably read something too and take his lunch with him. Tsukina says she's glad Blanc and the knights who love to read are visiting her cafe, and reports that the place now really does look like a book cafe. She asks if there's a sequel to this book, and the man replies that there is, but for now, the girl says she just finished reading this book and asks for it. The man thanks her and says that this book series is very interesting. The man says this book is pure gold and he's been looking for a sequel for ages. The woman says most existing books are available here, which is very convenient. The man says he learned about this cafe from a young man who saw the captain reading a book and explains that this book is especially popular with knights. The man explains that he's been traveling for a long time and is now grateful to fate for bringing him to Osel, where he was able to find this cafe. The man says he too. Tsukina says the cafe is very cozy, and an owner like herself would be a gem in any place, and thanks her for that. The man remarks that the atmosphere is very pleasant. The man explains that the captain always avoided talking about love, and now it's gotten to the point of marriage, and the man says he now understands. She says it's delicious and laughs. The guy says he thinks so too. The boy says that the knights in this country are very friendly. The man asks where he's from. The boy explains that in no other country has he seen ordinary knights so freely exchange jokes with their superiors. The guy says he's from the East and shows his ID. The girl says it's weird. The man explains that he and she seem to have a Japanese boyfriend. The boy says he's heard that the king of this country is very kind to commoners, but despite this, they have very strict rules in the knightly order. The man asks if maybe they're just that weird. The man says their king is a very open person and they are very friendly to newcomers to the order. The boy says that's possible. Tsukina explains that they never judge people unless it's something very serious. The man with glasses and the man with blonde hair say it's no wonder they're so friendly, because that's how they behave in the country they live in. The man with long dark hair says he's down, and the man with blonde hair thanks them for the treat and says he has. Tsukina says she doesn't mind if he comes here and says she'll wait for him. The man replies that he will definitely come. The man is silent. The man explains that he just returned from the store and asks if they disturbed Tsukina. Tsukina says everything is fine. The guy says it was a lot of fun. The girl asks if he can order something to eat. She agrees and asks what he'd like. The girl explains that he's recently eaten a lot and wonders if it'll make him sick. The guy says he wants something sweet, but he might still order a sandwich. Tsukina says she knows and will order a platter of sweets with his afternoon tea. The guy asks if he's sure, as they're pretty heavy sweets, to which Tsukina replies, "Yes, I'm sure." She says she's prepared a lot of sweets and treats and offers to try them. The man says it looks delicious and thanks her for the treat. The man says he hasn't had such delicious desserts in a long time and enjoys the meal. Tsukina says he likes to eat well, and the man asks if he likes it. The man tells him how delicious it is. She says that every time she eats, she enjoys the meal until the very end and seems happy. The man explains that he has metabolic problems, so no matter how much he eats, he uses up all his energy by the evening. He wouldn't say he loves to eat, but simply has to eat, otherwise he won't be able to walk. Tsukina says she doesn't understand, and the man asks her to explain what it means to love. The boy explains that if in childhood he was forced to eat a lot and read a lot, and since he did not experience any difficulties, these activities became something like a habit for him. The guy asks if this can be called love. Tsukina says he's talking about complicated things and asks if this is really an example or if Blanc told him about his past. The woman says it's just her guess. The man places his hand on the chair. Tsukina says that she thinks that if no one is forced and a person wants to do something himself, then this is what love means. The guy says that if this feeling was also imposed on him. Tsukina says that even if he was forced, it must have been an activity he enjoyed from the start. The man remains silent. She says that if she were ordered to read books, but there was no such order, would she stop coming to this cafe? The girl replies that she. Tsukina reports that she was sometimes forced to do things she didn't like at all, and the man replies that he would sort everything out. Tsukina explains that she didn't notice how she became completely immersed in these tasks, and that even among these orders, there were activities she enjoyed. She explains that in the past, she often worked with people. The guy explains that he also loved creating medicines for the Osella Knights and is so passionate about it that he feels like he could do it forever. She says that here's how. Sukina asks, what if this job becomes hateful? The man explains that many things could happen, but it's his job now, and he's responsible for it. Sukina says that if he gets rid of this debt and no longer wants to create medicines, he'll definitely quit. She says she'll quit if she doesn't want to anymore, but explains that she doesn't want to do something that will weigh heavily on her heart, even though it might complicate life for many and cause judgment. She reports that she particularly enjoys several activities, such as cooking, magic, and reading, and adds. The guy says he can't believe it happened and says it was incredible. The man says he's decided to keep going to the cafe, even if he's forced to stop reading, because he enjoys talking to Sukina. Sukina says that's how. She says she's very happy because she doesn't have a single friend except the man she's talking to, and asks who those knights are. The man explains that Il is his lover and fiancé. He values him very much, but he can't call him a friend. The man also says that the man is getting married soon. The guy congratulates Sukina. She says thank you very much, while blushing. Sukina says she'd like Blanc to attend her wedding too. Blanc says he feels like he'd be out of place. The woman says she will celebrate the wedding with ordinary townspeople. She says she knows. Sukina says he said he was a traveling merchant and wonders if his parents actually owned a trading company and raised their child so strictly. She also reports that it seems he was indeed forced to eat a lot and read various books. The boy says the place seems familiar and he feels like he's been here before. The girl explains that this is an ancient forest where, according to legend, spirits live and warns them to be careful. The man explains that they're walking along a path leading to an ancient temple and asks for help. The second frame from the top right shows a man in a hoodie with a backpack standing against a background of trees and exhaling. In the first frame, the crunch of footsteps can be heard from the top right. Two hooded men say, "Report." The hooded man on the right smiles. Two hooded men announce that a sound-permeable barrier has been established and they are contacting the leader. The man displays a device in his hand. A third man stands in the center of the circle, emitting a sound. Tsukina reports that their state is currently in dire straits. Their plan to capture Yuta has failed, and it's only a matter of time before their homeland is overrun. She explains that Oselm wields considerable influence in Tyre thanks to the two saviors who live there, so he can easily criticize their policies, adding that the guy says they're very lucky to have discovered the identity of the second savior. She says they need to put her under surveillance. The guy asks if she thinks they can trick her into cooperating with Havgal. Tsukina says, "Blon." The man is silent and makes the sound, "ah." She reports that, unfortunately, this is not possible. She explains that the girl is going to marry the head of the knightly order of Oselm, and besides, she is surrounded by knights every day. Tsukina explains that she not only erects a strong barrier, but also supplies the knights with potions and informs them that she is very dangerous. The guy asks if this means they can't use her for their own purposes, to which the other guy replies that yes. The man says that in that case, she needs to be disposed of. The man explains that if the savior dies, her barrier will weaken and sooner or later collapse. The man explains that she'll be marrying the head of the knights, and it will likely be a large celebration with guests from allied nations. The man asks Blanc if he succeeded and tells her that they are artificial saviors created by the state using doll magic. The boy says that if they survive, they will be able to create a huge number of new dolls. He announces that the rest will go to Hagal to prepare for the next step and warns them to remain vigilant and alert until the very end. The man says they'll try to form an alliance with Osel again, and if they refuse, then they'll have to take decisive action. The man says he'll say so. The guy says they're coming back. Then he says that what he loves. A man says he's home, and a man outside the house says welcome back. Tsukina reports that Il seems to be in a bad mood. She wonders if it's because of that very thing, and if it's serious, since they're in an alliance. The man says, "Damn, Hagal's at it again." She says that the man is probably tired, and suggests having dinner. The man agrees with her. The man says that Hagal has offered to make peace with Osel, and suggests that it is probably again on unfavorable terms. Tsukina asks why they're trying again, if they know they'll be rejected. The man explains that they still have the barrier, as well as another savior in Yuta, so there's no need to agree to such terms. He explains that the contract states that they want Osel to carefully consider. She says the worst part is that the deadline for an answer is the day before their wedding. She asks if he thinks Hagal has any other ulterior motives. The man announces that the wedding will be attended by members of the royal family, as well as guests from other countries, and adds that Hagal is known for his preference for playing dirty. Tsukina remains silent. She says that because of her, the other person also has to worry about all this. Tsukina says she's glad he shared it with her, and he explains that he doesn't want their wedding to be a bad memory for her. The girl says that this is his wedding too. The man addresses Tsukina by name. Tsukina says that if she can help him with anything, let him know, although she won't be able to help him in battle. The man thanks her. She says she's happy too. The man says he's very happy that she's always with him. The man says he cooked dinner today, and Tsukina says it's very nice. She says she found a good book today, and the man says he wants to read it as soon as possible. The guy says that now the girl will have even more work. Tsukina is silent, and the man is also silent. Tsukina says everything is as before, and the man is surprised. The man explains that the captains of the nightly squads have taken responsibility for preventative measures against Hagal and asks the leader not to burden himself with work, as the wedding is coming soon, and also wants. She laughs and says that he was unhappy about it too. The man explains that not everyone in the donkey can talk to him like that. Tsukina says, let's change the subject to ease the tension. The man apologizes for making her worry and says that if the situation improves, he'll definitely let her know. A guy asks Tsukina if she wants to go for a walk on the weekend, and she says she does, and even knows where they can go. The guy says, let's go to where they admired the Aurora Festival. The image shows a landscape with snow-capped mountains and a coniferous forest with a bird flying overhead. There is no text. Tsukina says she can't help this time because she doesn't have the strength. She explains that she doesn't want to hurt anyone and asks for understanding. The girl says the weather is wonderful today, and the man agrees. Tsukina says she hopes the sky will be bright and clear on the day of their ceremony. The man says that would be nice. The man and Tsukina hold hands. She says that he hasn't been very talkative lately and asks if he's really that worried about the wedding. The man tells Il that he knows. Tsukina says she always avoided problems and hid behind others, but after meeting her interlocutor, she changed. The man says he'll say even more. She says that with him she is ready to go through any trials. Tsukina tells him not to worry and to rest at least on his day off. The man is silent, then sighs. The guy says he loves Tsukina and wants them to be together forever. She listens to him. Tsukina says she'll never get used to those words, and the man agrees. The man says he finally said it and explains he hasn't said those words since the Aurora Festival. The man tells Tsukina that she might have to face various troubles on her path as a savior. The guy says he wants the girl to always rely on him. Tsukina says yes, and the man thanks her. She reports that some kind of incident was bound to happen on their wedding day, and to confirm this, Hagatha stopped doing anything. Then she explains that, nevertheless, the day of the ceremony was getting closer and closer. The image shows hands holding an open book. Tsukina says that Imi seemed to really like the book. Imi says that he planned to spend the entire day reading. She informs him that Illa has another day off today, and in this state all his attention will be focused on the book, and the only thing that can distract him is lunch. Tsukina says that she too loses touch with the rest of the world when she reads books. Then Tsukina picks up a sheet of paper from the easel. Blanc says hello. She greets him and wishes him welcome. She says she hasn't seen Blanc for several days and asks if he has been busy with work. Blanc is silent. She calls him by name. The guy tells Tsukina to say. Tsukina says she wants to know what, exactly. The man says he finds the situation a little strange. The man explains that the girl refused to go for a walk with anyone, justifying this by the fact that she already has a lover, and reports that even Iida, who is the savior, was never honored to walk with her around the city. Tsukina says that well. The guy says he didn't tell him anything about Yuta and asks him to wait. The man smiles silently. Tsukina says she wants to know how the other character knows this. A hand reaches out. She grabs the hand. The guy says it's very simple and asks Tsukina to look. The man reports that the girl was always friendly with him, despite him being a stranger to her. He explains that they spent a lot of time together simply because he was a guest at her cafe, adding that it was just like in that chapter of the Knights. The guy asks if Tsukina's boyfriend was interested in their relationship. Tsukina remains silent and says that, if she thinks about it, she's never really been close to Blanc. A guy says he doesn't understand why he keeps holding hands with someone despite not knowing their gender or their background. She says she's surprised he feels so comfortable with her. Tsukina says she doesn't understand what Blanc is talking about. Blanc explains that the mana inside her makes people she's gained her trust be kind and gentle to her. She reveals that she was originally supposed to lure a savior named Iata to her side, but then stumbled upon his cafe by chance. The man says he learned that she is the lover of the head of the knightly order and decided to get closer to her, thinking he could take advantage of this. Tsukina asks if he is really a spy of Agal. The man replies that he is. The man says she should have been more careful than anyone else. Tsukina remains silent and then says that she must free herself from his grip as quickly as possible and call Ila. There is water dripping on the floor. She says that. The guy says he had so much fun and was so happy every time the girl said welcome to him. Tsukina says she can't say it was love at first sight, but she immediately knew she wanted to be with this person. She says that she is actually a doll created in Hagal. The man asks if she is a doll. The man says that this is why he could never live like a normal person. The girl says that everything happened because of Tsukina, and Tsukina reacts with surprise. She explains that because she was told to stop doing things she didn't want to do and do what she loved, she began to think about what she liked and what she didn't like. Tsukina says, blank. The man cries and lets go of the other man's hand. She says that she couldn't call her lover and wants to tell him everything, and the girl replies that. The guy says they don't have much time. The guy comes down the stairs and tells Il to come down to him, then asks what happened, turning to Tsukina. The guy asks Tsukina if something's wrong. Tsukina explains how to say it. She is silent. The guy with his eyes closed squeezes her hand. The man says that the boy reveals that he was created by the royal family of Hagal to spy on Ocel's territory. The girl listens. The guy expresses surprise. Tsukina reports feeling tension. A man stands opposite her. The man tells Tsukina her name. She says he let go of her hand. The woman tells him he can go see his betrothed. The man asks who she is and hugs Tsukina. Tsukina looks away and the woman smiles. The guy explains that she has already heard that he is a doll, an artificial savior created by the people of Hagal. She asks what an artificial savior means. The man explains that for some reason, no saviors have appeared in Hagal for a long time, and the locals were extremely puzzled by this, so they finally decided to create a being with a large amount of mana, comparable to the savior's mana reserves. He explains that this is why he was created many years later, but his power did not. Tsukina says she saw him cast the barrier and couldn't imagine he would become so dear to her, so she immediately reported it to Hagal. She explains that she deeply regrets it now. The man says he wants to talk to Tsukina, and she listens. Tsuki. The guy says that this explosion will be much more serious than anything Oselm has experienced. She says that she can't believe that people are capable of something like this. Tsukina says that then they should wait too. The man says he's pleased that Tsukina is concerned about him even after discovering his true identity and thanks her. She says she can't understand why the man isn't responding and suggests that perhaps he doesn't want to talk. The man explains that he doesn't know what to say and asks not to force him to talk. The guy says he doesn't want to cause problems and prefers to remain silent. Tsukina says he creates dolls using a magical stone and can create an infinite number of dolls in exchange for the lives of Hagal's people. The man explains that the explosion could easily destroy him too. He is an irreplaceable original, so he was told to return to Hagal just before the operation began. The man explains that this is his magic stone. All people move thanks to its power, and his inhuman appetite is caused by the need to restore the power of the magic stone. The boy says he doesn't think the other dolls would be happy about this, and Tsukina asks why he came to them and showed them this. The girl with short blonde hair explains that it's a true miracle that humans were able to create this stone and says it will be impossible to replicate it. The woman explains that she is the only doll with feelings, and therefore, if the work involves communicating with people, she must do it. The man explains that he was supposed to kidnap Yoda and take her to Hagal while everyone was busy fighting monsters, and cites the incident with the Foley as an example. The guy says the girl ruined all his plans with her barrier. Tsukina says she can't understand why this happened. She says she can't understand why he did this and explains that it doesn't make sense. The man says to Tsukina. The guy says he was told to kill Tsukina. The guy says he can't afford to lose. Tsukina looks at him silently. She says she won't do it. Tsukina says that for the first time she met a person who was so kind and gentle with her, and for the first time she was able to feel warmth in her heart. The man says he is now being ordered to kill someone who is very dear to him. She says, Blun. The man says he really wanted to see Tsukina's face beaming with happiness, adorned with a smile, and asks if she was looking forward to her wedding that much. He then explains that that's why he decided. The guy says that he will no longer do what is disgusting to him, and from now on he will live the way he wants. Tsukina says she can't believe he actually came. The man says he came to pick her up. The head of the order, Soil, says he would like to request a cleanup at Hagal. The man asks what cleanup means. The man explains that he is planning to start a rebellion at Hagal and therefore needs someone to deal with the consequences of his decision. The man explains that he is the only one who can command the dolls to cause an explosion. He explains that if the dolls command them to destroy Osel, he won't be able to resist them, in other words. The man explains that, unfortunately, this magical stone was created using the magic of X's finest researchers. The man says that as long as he lives, they will always be in danger. Tsukina says, "How can this be?" The woman says she really wanted to come to Tsukina's wedding. She tells Blanc not to approach him because it's dangerous, and Blanc exclaims her name in response. The man explains that he loves Tsukina and this cafe, and she says in a flashback that that's why the guy says that he will stop all the dolls by using up all the stone's energy and protect Tsukina. The men in the audience loudly express their displeasure. A man waves his hand. Several men simultaneously raise their hands forward. The man says he's counting on the head of the order. Tsukina tells Blanc. The guy asks how Blanc is doing, and she tells him his name. Tsukina reports that his magic stone no longer shines. The man warns them that they're in trouble. The boy explains that they received a message from their spy in The Hague. The man calls out to Azan several times. It is reported that during a meeting of senior officials, an explosion occurred, and the castle was destroyed to the ground. Tsukina says that consequences are what he had in mind and asks if the man knows anything about it. The man says he'll be arriving at the castle now and reporting everything he knows. The guy starts calling Tsukina to come with him, then the sound of a blow is heard. She asks for forgiveness. The guy is silent. Tsukina says that it would probably be better to stay here. She reveals that she knows how to use travel magic to teleport to the castle. The man says that if anything happens, they need to leave immediately, adding that he'll return home as soon as he sorts everything out. The man says the place is called the Haunted House. Tsukina explains that the house is inhabited by a ghost who only appears at night. The man explains that many people are afraid to go there, but he wants to see if it's true. She explains that there are books in the library that cannot be taken home and warns that breaking the rules can result in punishment. Tsukina explains that he didn't even take her as a witness and is probably confused too. She says, blank. The man is lying on the floor. The woman says she's always been waiting for him to come. Tsukina says he decided to sacrifice himself to save her and Osella. The man says he had no idea the girl was a doll and a spy for Hagal, and strokes her head. Then the man explains that how could a doll, who only needs food to recharge, enjoy eating so much? He explains that the girl always read books about adventures in the unknown. Tsukina says Blanc has become one of the most precious people to her. The guy says that maybe if he imbues the stone with magic again, she explains that it has used up all its energy, which means its creators will no longer be able to give it orders. Tsukina reports that the outcome could be extremely unfavorable for Osel, and he could lose his position as head of the Knightly Order. The man says he will suffer a severe punishment as the savior of his country. She asks Ilya for forgiveness for dragging him along with her, and Ilya asks her for forgiveness. Tsukina informs him that she has already given him a huge amount of magic, necessary for using the great magic, but it is of no use. She explains that Hagal is simply a vile country, and asks how many people were sacrificed to create this stone. The man reports that by destroying the royal castle, Blanc has caused irreparable harm to all the villains of Hagal. The man says that Blanc has truly become a savior for all the inhabitants of Hagal. Tsukina says with a sigh. She says that he is obliged to see all those whom he saved at the cost of his life. In the right panel, a man clenches his hands, making a squeezing sound. In the left panel, Tsukina says she has no more strength. A house in the woods is shown in winter with smoke coming from the chimney. At the bottom right is a note indicating that this is chapter 25. Tsukina says, then sighs, ha. The man opens the door and creaks. The guy asks if she's awake. She explains that it feels like she hasn't slept at all, but it must have been a long time. The guy says it's bad that she has to cast a strengthening spell on herself every time to recover and offers her black tea. She thanks him. The guy says he wants to say something about Blanc. The man reports that they were able to learn that the inhabitants of Hagal suffered greatly and also received information about their secret research. Tsukina says that's good. The man explains that he woke up long before he returned, which he never expected. Tsukina says she's very surprised. The man realized she'd try to wake Blanc. The man apologizes. Illa informs His Majesty that she has large reserves of mana and may know a spell that will destroy Blanc, and also explains that out of kindness to Blanc, she was ordered to be closely watched. Illa explains that Blanc called her using her communication device, a man with long dark hair. On the top right, Blanc was in a severe panic, explaining that he shouldn't have had the strength to continue living, but somehow he'd woken up. Furthermore, Tsukina was unconscious, breathing, but he didn't know how to help her. On the bottom right, the man was asking her to calm down and tell him. She asks for forgiveness. The man says that it looks like Hagal will now be divided. Tsukina explains that the residents will be distributed among nearby countries, and Osel will also accept Hagal's residents, but only a certain portion. Then Tsukina says that everything is exactly as it should be. The upper right section depicts a shattered column amidst rubble, accompanied by a message stating that Hagal, who had plotted against absolutely every state in the world, was destroyed in the blink of an eye. The lower left section shows dolls being inspected before being sent off for surgery, and it states that. The top right text states that apparently only members of the Hagal royal family and high-ranking officials were affected. On the top right, a man says he heard that many have recovered and reports that medicine has been sent to all seriously ill residents of Hagal. On the bottom left, Suki. The man reports that a decision came from the palace today, and Sukina says that as punishment for what happened, she must swallow. The man informs her that she must teach the royal healers the method of creating these effective medicines. Sukina informs him that this will be her first visit to the royal palace since she's been there. Sukina asks if that's all. The man replies that it is. The man states that, in this case, he cannot turn a blind eye to helping a spy from an enemy country without permission, so punishment is inevitable. The girl and the man listen to him. The king says she should trust her lover more and reminds her that she's not alone, then adds, however. Sukina says yes, thank you very much. The king responds well. She says that now she can rest properly and apologizes for calling her interlocutor while he was recovering his strength, and then announces that that is all. Sukina says she doesn't understand. The man remains silent. The man says not to worry and says that if he needs help, he will definitely contact his interlocutor. The man reports that thanks to Sukina, he and the Knight's Order have limited themselves to simple concerns. Blanc offered his full cooperation to free her from punishment, and they also received a letter from Yuta. The man says that if he can help in any way, he will certainly try to do so, the man explains. Sukina says that she is so lucky, even His Majesty did not punish her seriously, and she is so grateful to everyone. She says that, in the end, in exchange for saving Blanc, she was ordered to help healers with vast reserves of magic, and that's all. The man says they didn't connect the extent of her magical powers with her ability to be a savior, and asks if this is really God's blessing. Sukina says, God. The man says they haven't seen each other for a long time. She says he doesn't seem to be planning on opening his own cafe, so she has nothing to worry about, and that she already had tea before bed. The man explains that he borrowed the design from Sukina's cafe because he really liked it. She explains that she's seen those cups somewhere, and the man says he's surprised and didn't expect the girl to be able to deal with even Hagal. Sukina explains that she didn't do anything, and it's all thanks to Blanc and the guys from Oselm. The man says that when he first brought Sukina into this world, he thought that this time he'd be the one to. The man explains that the credit for the people he inspired with his lifestyle and beliefs is true, and cites Juta and Blanc as examples. She says he was talking about something completely different. The man says he's already explained that saviors are beings who are supposed to maintain order in the world around them. Sukina says she doesn't actually do anything. The man replies that yes. The woman asks if she floated flowers down the river that flows through Oselm, and clarifies whether this is the same festival she attended with Il. She explains that this is the very flower she held while discussing what is most precious to her. Sukina says it's obvious, because he makes the world around him better simply by his existence, and even the barrier imposed on an entire city can be considered a blessing from above by the residents. The girl responds with a question. She explains that, of all the saviors he summoned, the girl performed the task best, and for the other saviors it was just an isekai. But for her, this place has become a home. The girl explains that if he goes to that festival every year, the country will become richer and richer, and she. Sukina says the man is overestimating her. The woman says the man hasn't used the pendant in a while, and the man says she just enjoys shopping. The man says the girl began earning money to buy goods honestly from local residents. The girl says that the longer she lives on this land, the more connected she becomes with her heart and her magic. The man thanks Tsukina, calling her a savior who lived up to all his hopes. The guy says that one existence saves people around and the whole world. The man says he doesn't mind if the girl is with him. Tsukina says she doesn't mind either. She says she just lives the way she wants. The other person says that's enough, and you just need to be yourself. The man says he'll also come to the wedding and wants to get closer to the people of this world, especially Sukina. Sukina asks him to remember to leave a gift at her cafe. The man explains that he's asking God himself for a gift and adds that it's okay. The man says he enjoys eating cookies and drinking delicious tea, and that he thought so when he first visited the cafe out of curiosity. He then reveals that this is one of the things the girl changed about him. The guy says he'll be serving his interlocutor at the highest level, not as an observer, but as a simple customer. Sukina says to come back again. The guy explains that he's become more human. The man says it sounds a lot more fun than just watching the world go by, and agrees that the other guy is right. Sukina reports the sequence of numbers 4 and 33. She says that this is not a dream, but reality, and explains that she cannot die. The image shows a city with a large cathedral in the center and many houses surrounding it. The word finale is written at the bottom right. Sukina says she is very nervous. She says she should calm down a bit. She explains that if she starts biting her lips, she'll rub off all her lipstick. The girl says she can't believe so many people came to watch her and Il's wedding, adding that she didn't know it would turn out like this. The man asks. Tsukina reports that her wedding day is approaching soon, and that several days have passed since the riots in Hagak. The woman reports that Blanc has shared all of Hagal's secret information and research with Ocel, and has also joined the Order of the Knights of Ocel, so he can come to her cafe every day. She says she is glad that His Highness allowed him to stay in Ocel. The man reports that Blyan has regained his original appearance, which he had to change to infiltrate Ocel, and explains that his hair and skin look absolutely stunning. The woman says she knew he would be nervous about important people attending his wedding. The guy says it's such a kind country. The woman informs him that there will be a banquet after the ceremony, where the royal chef will prepare as many dishes as he requests, and asks if this is true. Sukina says that her interlocutor is such a glutton, and if he likes any of the dishes, she will try to recreate it in her cafe, especially for him. The guy asks if he helped her calm down, and the girl replies that she's now confident everything will be fine and thanks him. The guy says he won't be able to attend the ceremony but will watch her wedding from afar and asks her to remember how happy he is for her. There's a knock at the door. Sukina says thank you very much. The man announces that the time has come. She says that she is going to get married now and asks not to cry. Blanc thanks Sukina for her protection. Sukina explains that in the end it was all her fault and that Sukina has truly become very dear to her, after which she laughs and says that Blanc seems to have started thinking like one of the locals. The girl congratulates Sukina on her wedding and says that her dress suits her very well. The man thanks her for the invitation. Sukina thanks him very much for coming today, addressing him as her father. She reveals that she has no parents in this world, so she asked Father Ila to escort her to the altar. The father, mother, and child are smiling. Nearby, the grandfather and grandmother stand with a girl. The girl announces that she is getting married. Sukina announces that she agrees to marry. The man says he's happy about it. A man in military uniform stands before the assembled crowd while the king and queen sit on the throne, overseeing the ceremony. The man says he wants to spend his life with Sukina and asks her to be his wife. She says she agrees. The man puts a ring on Sukina's finger, and they look at each other and smile. The priest announces that on this joyful day, they have gathered here to tie the newlyweds in marriage. The woman says it was a very touching speech. The man explains that he was touched too, and the boy says it was an important moment for everyone. The priest asks whether the newlyweds vow to be with each other in sorrow and in joy. The guy swears. A guy and a girl are kissing. The guy is holding a bouquet of flowers. The man announces that they are now husband and wife and asks everyone to congratulate them. Sukina says she is very happy and wishes them happiness. The man explains that the wedding was a success and now they can celebrate. The man shouts cheers along with everyone else. The man says, "Phew!" The guy asks Sukina if she's tired, and Sukina says she's a little tired but doesn't feel sleepy at all. The guy says he's tired too. She tells Il that his formal suit suits him very well and that he was simply irresistible. Il replies that Sukina's dress was also amazing. The guy asks Sukina if she has a day off tomorrow and tells her he's been given a few days off from work, after which he suggests they go out somewhere. Sukina says she wants to get some rest. The man says they'll still have time to go on their honeymoon and suggests the girl go somewhere in Ocel, to which she agrees. The man explains that they've decided to go for their honeymoon to one of the countries with which Ocel is allied and admits he's a little awkward pronouncing it. Sukina says ill. The man replies, M? The man strokes Sukina's hand. She says thank you for everything. The man replies that he thanks her. The man says they can now rest in peace, and Sukina says she feels safe with him. She says at the stairs that she's tired. She notices a gift next to the cash register and asks what's next to the cash register. The gift is signed with the word God. Sukina says she'll have to think about what to make for lunch, but for now, she needs to focus on breakfast. The man says he'll drop by for a snack sometime and is giving her a cookbook, to which Sukina replies that she wouldn't mind. She notices the cookbook with delight. Il comes down the stairs, greets Sukina, and says good morning to her, to which she responds in kind. Sukina says she feels awkward and laughs. Sukina and the man look at each other. The man explains that he feels awkward too. The image contains no speech bubbles or text and no characters, so there is no retelling. 2 sandwiches are shown on a patterned plate with berries nearby. The man says it's the same. Sukina explains that it's the same dish he ate when he first came to her cafe. She says that at that time he was very unhappy with the antics of the savior who appeared in the castle, and that at that moment he thought how long it had been since he had eaten so deliciously. The man says the food is delicious, as always. Sukina smiles. The man tells her that a new volume of the book she's been waiting for came out yesterday, and she can't wait to read it. She says she also found the book she's been wanting to read for a long time, so she can't sit still. The man suggests they read it together after breakfast, to which Suki responds. Sukina says she can't understand why he doesn't want to go to school, and explains that if he doesn't go, he won't be able to meet his friends. The man says he understands her words but still doesn't want to go because he feels unwell. She reports that the tea has already cooled down. She explains that the newspaper says there will be a cold winter this year. The clock shows the time is around 35. Sukina says she's happy. She places her cup on the table, making a clicking sound. A man explains that he can't read books because he has poor eyesight, so he always wears glasses. She explains that she also has poor eyesight and therefore always wears glasses. The man explains that glasses help him see the world better. She says that without glasses, she can't see anything. Sukina says she is so happy. She blushes and says she couldn't get it out of her head. The man replies that, yes. The guy says the same. The girl looks at his hand, which he is holding, and seems thoughtful. There are no wars in this world, and there are no adventures that make the heart beat faster. The man says there's no love here, which only brings misfortune. The man smiles and holds the girl's chin. The boy says the only thing he has here is a loving family and loyal friends. Sukina says that from this day forward, she will continue to live, bringing joy to her loved ones.